Hey everyone, welcome to TPUSA Live. Jon Root here. I'm sitting next to Legally
Isabel
Blonde.
Brown, Legally Blonde, maybe. Today we are joined by our very special friend Lucy, who wanted to help us open the show.
Oh, thanks for being here, Lucy. We're very grassroots today. When you check this out, we're just in a random room here at TPUSA HQ.
Really
But we have a fantastic live stream for you today. You know, we always kick it off with Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec. Once again, Jack, you got to watch the show. You got to listen to the podcast because there's millions of listeners now.
Jack is diving into a ton of really important subjects today, including the latest on the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, with the Daily Caller, she'll come back maybe, reporting is effectively ending this particular trial. We've had new information come out with an eyewitness testimony that someone actually killed or threatened to kill Kyle Rittenhouse before he ever shot his firearm. This is huge information for this particular trial, and Jack's going to break it all down for you.
Yeah, Jack is the guy you need to go to for every single bit of information and updates and the latest news on the Rittenhouse case. Also, Steele Dossier News, he'll give you some information on that. And TPUSA Live, we will be on another couch.
Less of a grassroots couch, maybe.
Yes, we'll be on the nice set, everything where you guys are used to. We're going to sit down with musician, comedian, and host of Daily Caller Live. Jobob is going to be back for another day. And
Isn't he a graduate of the same college you went to, Jon?
Azusa Pacific University, baby.
That's really fun for you.
You got a couple cougs on the couch. You got to love it. And then Drew Hernandez is back, so he's a Real America's Voice correspondent, also investigative reporter. We had him on just about a week ago or so, and he's fantastic.
Pretty recently. Drew is awesome. His information on social media is really great when it comes to investigative reporting, and he always has some fun nuggets of wisdom to share with us on TPUSA Live. You guys are going to be going into tons of important subjects today, including what's happening in China, the latest there. You're going to be playing my new favorite game, Quarantine, Marry, or Jail, which we had so much fun playing the other day. What's happening in Commiefornia? I know you went to college there. I know your family is still there.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah, the parents are still there.
California is psycho. So you're breaking down what's happening there, but get out while you can.
Yeah, I'm telling people, be like me, get out of there. And this is why you need to get out of there. We'll break that down. And then also, too, we're going to have a little Derek Carr. We're going to talk a little sports today, too. I think his responses to what's been going on with the Vegas Raiders has been fantastic. I think he's a total role model. We'll break that down. And then we got the spillover.
So fun. Today's episode, you'll get some more of Jack Posobiec. And I have to tell you, I snuck a listen to it last night as it came out with Apple Podcasts.
You got to listen to it before everybody else?
It comes out the night before on podcast, Jon. Obviously, such a good listen. They're talking about the Great Reset and what's happening with the left strategically trying to change humanity as you know it. You won't own anything. Everything will be collective, and you'll be happy about it, gosh darn it. But it's a great conversation, and you definitely want to check that out.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like we're living in some sort of simulation.
Honestly,
and then when you have the metaverse coming out too, it's getting weird. Jack will break that down. And then we got POPlitics. You're gonna get a little bit more Alex Clark right after the spillover. She's gonna talk about Will Smith's shocking revelation. It's a shocking revelation. I didn't expect to talk about this much Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith, but they're in the news. He's got a new memoir. I really do love Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I'll watch those, but everything else, Will Smith right now, I'm a little iffy on.
Yeah, right now I could kind of agree. She's also going into the latest with Dakota Johnson, the actress from 50 Shades of Grey, slamming cancel culture, which is very exciting. And who made the first move, Kim or Pete? The world may never know.
For me, I could care less.
Me too, to be honest with you. But if you love pop culture and you love Alex Clark, you make sure to check out POPlitics today. And
then it's something that is talked about quite a bit during this time. We're in November. Obviously, we got Movember. Once again, I'm sorry you have to look at this.
It's horrible.
All month long.
I am not a fan.
But it's for a great cause. But a lot of people talk about Christmas music. Can you play Christmas music before Thanksgiving? And I say no.
Okay, so we've already called Jon a Grinch on this show repeatedly because he hates Christmas, apparently, is not into the Christmas
I love Christmas
spirit.
at the right time.
I used to be in this camp, I will be honest, but I've gone through a lot in the last several weeks. I'm waiting on a surgery. I could use some more Christmas cheer. Being totally transparent with you guys, the other night I literally made Elf Christmas sugar cookies. I made some hot chocolate with whipped cream and marshmallows, and I watched Elf on November 3rd. So that's where I'm at, which is very exciting. If you're like me and just need a little extra joy in your life, I say go for it. Play the Christmas music. Michael Bublé is out here posting TikToks saying, Michael Bublé, activate. We're so excited about it. Just embrace the joy.
No, Mariah Carey should just wait until after Thanksgiving and then just whatever, go for it. But obviously, I haven't been through enough, and I don't like joy. Clearly,
No.
that's what Isabel's.
It's why his mustache looks like this.
But coming up next, we got Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec. We'll see you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily, powered by Turning Point USA. On today's episode, I will give you the latest information regarding Kyle Rittenhouse and the Steele Dossier. Fiona Hill is implicated in the latest Durham release. Durham is now investigating the Brookings Institution. A Daily Caller reporter just effectively ended the Kyle Rittenhouse case, and an eyewitness testified that Rosenbaum threatened to kill Kyle Rittenhouse. All this and more ahead, Human Events Daily. The Steele Dossier indictments have begun. Attorney John Durham, the special counsel that was appointed under Barr, who has been continuing his work very quietly in the background for all this time, is now showing signs of life, and the signs he's showing are absolutely massive. I want to read to you a passage from the charging document of Igor Danchenko, who is the source of the Steele Dossier. Remember, the Steele Dossier was the dirty dossier that was funded by Secretary Clinton's campaign through a series of shell organizations that was used by Jake Tapper and BuzzFeed to create the Russiagate conspiracy that launched the Mueller investigation that hampered and throttled the Trump administration for pretty much the entire time he was in office. This all goes back to a lie, and we now know a criminal operation that took place throughout 2016 and 2017. And I want to talk to you a little bit about someone who was working in the background to set it up. Listen to this right here. Under the section for PR Executive 1. Now, PR Executive 1 is a powerful Democrat operative who's tied to Secretary Clinton. It says, at times relevant to this indictment, PR Executive 1 was a Virginia-based public relations professional employed by a Washington, D.C.-based public relations firm. In or about February 2016, think tank employee 1, the aforementioned individual who introduced Danchenko to UK person 1, introduced Danchenko to PR Executive 1 in connection with potential business opportunities. Who was think tank person 1? We can tell you that because we have her identity. That was none other than Fiona Hill, the same Fiona Hill who testified against President Trump in the first ridiculous impeachment over the Ukraine hoax. The same Fiona Hill who's been running around warning us of the dangers of Putin and all the rest of this, saying we're all working for him. Bernie Sanders is working for him. The same Fiona Hill introduces the Russian source of the dossier to Christopher Steele, and we now know introduced Igor Danchenko to PR Executive 1, who was tied to Secretary Clinton's campaign. Here's a clip of Fiona Hill from just very recent.
Putin, sadly, has got all of our political class, every single one of us, including the media, exactly where he wants us. He's got us feeling vulnerable, he's got us feeling on edge, and he's got us questioning the legitimacy of our own systems.
But how much of our polarization, of the fact that we are heads butting in this country, how much of that came from the Russians?
Well, certainly in 2016, a lot of it did, but they don't invent the divisions. The Russians didn't invent partisan divides. The Russians haven't invented racism in the United States. But the Russians understand a lot of those divisions, and they understand how to exploit them.
Do you think we're in a second Cold War?
I don't think that we're in a second Cold War. the one thing that people need to bear in mind is that the Russian military still has the capacity to wipe out the United States through a nuclear strike. But there is no ideological struggle. The Cold War were two systems against each other. In a sense, we're in the same system. We're competitors.
Now, Fiona Hill is a very powerful insider within the national security apparatus of the United States. Not working for the people. This is the same national security state that controls much of Washington, D.C. One of their powerful institutions is known as the Brookings Institution. We'll talk more about that because that was the place that employed both Fiona Hill and Igor Danchenko, who went on to become the source of the dossier. When Fiona Hill testified in 2019, myself and many other people called her out, and rightly so, to say, Fiona Hill, more like Fiona Schill. We knew what she was about, and all hell rained down upon us that day. My name was trending on Twitter for calling her out. Now we know because of this charging document. And people will say, but Jack, she was in President Trump's administration. She was one of the good people. No, I don't care. This doesn't matter. This isn't this side, that side. This is us and the national security state, the American people versus the corruption in Washington, D.C., in Foggy Bottom, Langley, all the rest of it that we've been talking about. You might call it a deep state. You might call it administrative state, a bureaucratic state, whatever phrase you want to use. This is the situation, and we are unraveling their tangled web. Human Events Daily can now exclusively report. You're not going to hear this anywhere else. You're going to hear it here, and that's why you watch Human Events Daily. That John Durham, the U.S. Attorney, the special counsel, is positively investigating the Brookings Institution as an organization, this think tank. What role did they play in the genesis of creating the dirty dossier? What we've been told, according to members of the national security community, the IC, is that multiple members of the Brookings Institution have testified before the grand jury that was convened by John Durham. He is looking deeply into the genesis of this plot, this operation. That really was an operation to create false ties between candidate Trump, then candidate Trump, before he was President Trump, and to make it look as though that campaign was tied to Russia. That's what they were doing. And so many people that were involved, so we just talked about in the last segment, were tied to the Brookings Institution. So what is the Brookings Institution? According to Bloomberg, and this is from Eli Lake, right? Not a conservative in any way. On Thursday, Durham indicted a former Brookings Institution researcher named Igor Danchenko on 5 counts of lying to the FBI. Danchenko was the primary source for Steele's infamous dossier. Fiona Hill had introduced him to Christopher Steele. Fiona Hill was also at the Brookings Institution. So people are saying, what is this? They are a high-level national security state apparatus type organization within Washington, D.C. How high level, you ask? Listen to this clip from back in 2015. Strobe Talbot, a former member of the Clinton White House, who is the head of Brookings, introduces then Vice President Joe Biden, a good friend of the Brookings Institute, to talk about Russia and Ukraine. Take a listen.
Mr. Vice President, on behalf of all of us here, particularly the International Advisory Council, the Brookings Institution, we welcome you here to Brookings today. We know that you are going to be addressing us on one of the most consequential issues of our time, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The Vice President has been a friend of this institution and a friend of many of us here for many years. Welcome back, Mr. Vice President.
Delighted to be here. Thank you, Joe.
So do you see what's going on here? Do you understand what's happening? This institution, the national security state, the same people who were involved in Ukraine in 2013, 2014, 2015. You're going to hear these names over and over again from Maidan, the revolution that was supported by the previous administration that led to the ouster of the democratically elected government in Ukraine, to foster this animosity towards Russia that created everything that we saw going forward, to turn Russia into an enemy and to make it look as though Russia was manipulating our politicians and our system. Victoria Nuland, Joe Biden, the Brookings Institute, Christopher Steele, Igor Danchenko, Fiona Schill. These are the same names that are going to keep coming up. Another name that you are going to keep hearing in all of this is Jake Sullivan. And I know I said this yesterday, but I'm going to bring it back again. Jake Sullivan was quarterbacking this thing during his role in the Secretary Clinton campaign in 2016. He was behind the story, this false story of the Alpha Bank server communicating with the Trump organization. It was totally made up, totally fake. People even went in and faked computer data and handed it to the FBI and said, look, Trump is communicating with the Russians. You've got to investigate. You've got to do this. Then the dossier comes along and says, look, Trump's got all this stuff going on with the Russians. And Trump, you've got to investigate. You've got to do this. You've got to do it. And of course, over at the FBI, we now know what happened. But Jake Sullivan went on from all that. He bounced from all that, danced around, danced along, la, 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 la. Jake Sullivan dances all the way up to becoming the national security advisor under President Biden in the current administration. So Jake, you better lawyer up. Strobe Talbot, you better lawyer up. Everybody at Brookings better lawyer up. Everybody involved, Robbie Mook, Jennifer Palmieri, you better lawyer up. It's time for all. I'm just kidding, folks. I already know they've lawyered up because people are talking. This is what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. Durham is winding up. In fact, he's winding down. These stories that are coming out now, the reason this is getting all traction is because he's wrapping things up. He's cutting deals. He's moving into the end game of all of this. That's why you're hearing this come out now. So you get some dirt on someone, you get the indictment. Who can they roll on? We'll make things go easier for you. Don't take all these charges. Don't be the fall guy. Give me the next guy up. That's what's going on. That's basically how these guys work. It is very strange. It is very strange for a lot of people in Washington, D.C. to be seeing this level of scrutiny applied to the national security state itself. But that has been John Durham's reputation in the past. And honestly, sir, I congratulate you for what you've done. Get your Christmas shopping did. Get it did. Don't sleep on this. But if you do want to sleep, make sure you're doing it on a MyPillow. MyPillow.com, promo code POSO. Go there, get all of the deals, get your gifts in, help out your family, help out yourself. You'll be doing fine. We've got to talk about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial because, quite frankly, it's over. It's actually over. Yesterday, on the stand in that courtroom, the prosecutor self-immolated and destroyed his own case with his own witnesses. Folks, you will not see something like this happen in American jurisprudence for a long time coming. You're really not going to see it because you have a prosecutor who has no idea what he's doing. We talked about this before. The only reason Kyle Rittenhouse is on trial is to prevent scrutiny of the Adaramian family and Mayor Adaramian, the guy who was the mayor who let Kenosha burn. His cousin, the DA, and the detective, his nephew, are the ones that are persecuting Kyle Rittenhouse. There is no evidence, none whatsoever, that proves these crimes. So listen as this witness, Richie McGinnis, right, a colleague of mine from the Daily Caller, a fantastic, incredible, professional, consummate, just professional through and through, gave the testimony, number one, that Kyle Rittenhouse was attacked by Rosenbaum. Listen to this.
The sequence of the folks that were involved in this running, as we've seen in many other videos, is Mr. Rittenhouse is in front, Mr. Rosenbaum is running after him, and you are behind Mr. Rosenbaum. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
How far back from Mr. Rosenbaum were you as the pursuit went through the Car Source parking lot?
Well, it's hard to say because I kind of caught up to them. I was running a bit faster, and so At the time, initially, I was probably 30 feet back when everybody first started running, but then by the time I arrived in the lot, I was 15 feet.
And you continue to be behind Mr. Rosenbaum at the time that the defendant shot and killed him, correct?
I did alter my trajectory a little bit when I saw Mr. Rittenhouse turn around and saw Mr. Rosenbaum lunging for the front portion of the rifle.
Now think about it, folks. This is the prosecution's witness. This is the state's witness. The defense hasn't even begun yet. And yet from that moment, you can hear the case is over. Kyle was attacked. Someone was trying to steal the gun from him. I already released the footage that the FBI sat on for 14 months, but Human Events Daily got our hands on it, and we released it in day one, and it got millions and millions of views all around the world. And now they're being forced to play it in court. So the prosecutor realized this, and he realized how much his name's Binger, and he's a total Binger, this guy. It's like, dude, you're a Binger. Listen to what happened when he realizes how bad his case has fallen apart. He tries to then treat his own witness as a hostile witness. Why did he even call this guy? Why did he even call Richie? It's like he didn't even talk to him to understand what was happening. Listen to what happened when he tried to impugn the credibility of Richie McGinnis.
I mean, you have no idea what Mr. Rosenbaum was ever thinking at any point in his life. You have never been inside his head. You never met him before. You don't know.
I've never exchanged words with him, if that's what your question is.
So your interpretation of what he was trying to do or what he was intending to do or anything along those lines is complete guesswork, isn't it?
Well, he said you, and then he reached for the weapon.
Kaboom! That's what happened. Kaboom, Binger. You just got banged, Binger. You just got binged. That's pretty much the end of it right there. That's pretty much the end of it. Saying, oh, well, the state of mind and the implications. And Richie with, by the way, the most Richie McGinnis response you'll ever hear. There's an old adage that lawyers will say. They say, never ask a witness on the stand a question you don't already know the answer to. And he walked right in, the Binger, that's the ADA's name, walked right into a trap that he laid for himself. Kyle Rittenhouse should walk. He is not guilty of these charges, period. We'll get more into that in the next segment, but from a legal perspective, Kyle Rittenhouse should be acquitted of all charges. From legalinsurrection.com, the excellent work of analyst and lawyer Andrew Branca. State witness Ryan Balch shows Rosenbaum as a violent lunatic. Ryan Balch first met Kyle Rittenhouse the night of August 25th when both of them showed up to Kenosha in the Car Source lot to attempt to protect property and provide medical care to the injured. Both men came armed with AR-style rifles, but that was about their only similarity. While Kyle was a 17-year-old lifeguard who had fired his rifle only on one previous occasion, Balch was a former Army infantryman who had done a tour in Afghanistan, a tour in Iraq, and had put 10 or 15,000 rounds to the AR rifle he had owned for years, in part because he used the rifle competitively. Balch's testimony from, I remind you, a state witness was extremely helpful for the defense and extremely hurtful for the prosecution. When Binger asked Balch for his impression of Joseph Rosenbaum that night, Balch replied that every time he encountered Rosenbaum, he was being hyper-aggressive and acting out in a violent manner, always having to be restrained from violence by others. Indeed, Balch said he was approached by other protesters who wanted to ensure him that Rosenbaum was not one of them, not a member of their group. These other protesters wanted no misunderstanding that there might be an association between the hyper-aggressive Rosenbaum and themselves. Listen to this. When Rosenbaum says that Balch says that Rosenbaum got in their face, and listen to what Rosenbaum said to Balch and Rittenhouse prior to the events of the shooting that took place later in the night. Listen to what Rosenbaum said to Kyle Rittenhouse.
And I stepped in and told everybody, chill out, calm down, stop doing that. I turned and had an exchange with one of the protesters, and I kind of explained to that protester, hey, you know, I get what you're trying to do, but like not this. And when I turned around, Rosenbaum was right there in front of my face, yelling and screaming, and I said, dude, back up. just like, chill. I don't know what your problem is. And he goes, you know what? If I catch any of you guys alone tonight, I'm going to kill you.
And he said that to you?
Correct.
Did he say that to the defendant as well?
The defendant was there, so yes.
It's really hard for me to understand exactly what Binger is up to. And if you didn't have the information that Human Events Daily had presented prior to this, you might be scratching your head as well. Why would a state's witness, the prosecution's witness, come forward and destroy the prosecution's own case? This is what happens when you don't do any prep work. But as I've said before, they don't care. This isn't necessarily about finding justice. In fact, none of this is about finding justice. It's about two things. Number one, it's about the mainstream media having the ability to destroy someone's life, to spread a false narrative throughout the country. Remember, Facebook and Twitter were banning people for saying they supported Kyle Rittenhouse or for sharing out the link to his legal defense fund. Everyone is required and deserves a legal defense. Derek Chauvin, Kyle Rittenhouse, even members of Antifa. Every single American citizen deserves a proper legal defense. It's just as simple as that. But the prosecution in this case, I would actually argue that in a just society, they should be prosecuted. The mayor should be prosecuted. The DA should be prosecuted. The detective should be prosecuted. Every single one of them who is involved in this is a criminal, as far as I'm concerned. The exact same way early on that when we talked about Russiagate, those were criminals that set up that operation. We live in a country run by criminals. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have. Thank you so much for being with us. What an incredible, huge news week we've had here. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Thank you so much for sharing out the scoops that we've had this week. The FBI, Brookings Institute, the fact that they had Kyle Rittenhouse under surveillance. Be the influence agent. Our motto to you: be good, be brief, be gone. Share this out with your normie friends. But before we go, it's time for today's moment of history. Today, of course, November 5th, Guy Fawkes Day. Guy Fawkes was betrayed and arrested in an attempt to blow up British Parliament in the Gunpowder Plot, a Catholic revolutionary who was fighting back against Catholic persecution in Britain. Today, also November 5th, is my anniversary with the lovely and beautiful Tanya Tay Posobiec. Sweetheart, I love you. I will always love you. And today is the day that God brought us together forever. Ladies and gentlemen, you have my permission to lay ashore.
This is your brain. This is your brain on socialism. Any questions?
That's all the time we have here from myself in Dallas, Texas. Thank you to Elijah Schaefer for letting me use his studio facilities today. I'll be appearing at Better Discourse in Fort Worth tomorrow, so if you're there, check us out. By the way, I'll also be at Liberty Forum in Palo Alto, California. I'll be up there on Tuesday night, so check that out. Liberty Forum, Palo Alto, California, next Tuesday. So for all of us at the Human Events team, to all of you, we want to take it over to the couch for all the latest discussion. So take it away, John.
TPUSA HQ in Phoenix, Arizona, and welcome to TPUSA Live. Here's the rundown for today. So we're going to cover the daily briefing. Right after that, we're going to talk about some Commiefornia. And then also, we got Quarantine Mary Jail. It's going to be one of our favorite games. Second time we've ever done that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Also, we have some news about Aaron Rodgers as well. So he is not vaccinated, and he explains why, actually, on Pat McAfee's show. We'll go over that in one last thing. But I'm ready to get rolling. I hope you are. TPUSA Live from HQ starts right now.
Authentic, unfiltered, grassroots content and conversation every weekday. Live from Phoenix, Arizona at the Turning Point USA headquarters, this is TPUSA Live.
Well, welcome to TPUSA Live. Welcome to TPUSA HQ. And my goodness, Jobob is back. Actor, comedian, and host of Daily Color Live. What the heck is on your face?
Yeah, dude. I mean, if you were watching the end of the show last night, we're talking about a mustache contest for November. I said it. You can rewatch the tape if you want. I was going to win, and what? Right?
That was
right?
that was not on your face yesterday.
Oh yeah, this is a real mustache though.
Are you actually going to out your doctor now? Because yesterday you said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to show up. I'm going to start winning this thing because we got a big mustache contest." How'd you grow it so fast?
You know, it's just it's all. I feel like you guys don't believe me.
No, not at all. I don't think Drew Hernandez, who's back again, we're so excited to have you. You're also an investigative reporter and then working for Real America's Voice correspondent.
Dude, I think I got to give you props, man. You grew that thing overnight.
Again, I'm sensing some sarcasm here. It's almost like you guys don't believe me.
No.
Look, I wasn't going to do this, but you've forced me to. The hatred in both of your hearts has forced me to say this publicly. I am trans mustache. This is something that I've been carrying with me for a long time, and I don't appreciate this not being a safe space to be trans mustache.
Well, clearly we have a victim with us today. We're just two oppressors over here. Drew and I, we're so sorry. But we really do like the mustache.
Just get on with your show.
I'm so sorry. Let's dive into the daily briefing. Let's get you caught up on some vaccine mandate stuff. So San Francisco, we're gonna, is it gone now?
Oh, mustache fluid.
So San Francisco is about to become the very first city in the entire United States to require vaccine passports for indoor activities for children as young as 5 years old. What's your thought?
It's no surprise. These people are just continuing to go after children, whether it's in Loudoun County or whether it's through CRT or whether it's covering up the rape of a 9th grade girl. These people believe that they know better than their own parents. And it's alarming. It's seriously not even something to joke about because these people are authoritarian communist psychopaths.
Yep.
And whenever you have someone that is like, yeah, you know what? We know you're a parent, you're a mother or a father, but we know a little better than you. I think you should probably mark that person as pretty psycho and a threat to your child.
And the way they're explaining it too, I know we talked about yesterday how President Biden's like, well, we're forcing these vaccine mandates January 4th. It's so important, and we got to make sure that we bite this in the butt right now, that we're going to make sure that we're enacting that January 4th. But this is what they're saying. So city health official Dr. Suzanne Phillips said Tuesday, we definitely want to wait and make sure that children have an opportunity to get vaccinated. That will happen no sooner than about 8 weeks after the vaccine is available to kids. So there will be a limited time, get this, there will be a limited time in which there will not be those requirements. And then at some point, 5 to 11-year-olds will also have to show proof of vaccination to access some of the same settings. So they're saying right now, they can go into those settings, they can go into those restaurants, they can access those places, but 8 weeks from now, no. What's changing 8 weeks from now?
Well, does anybody stop to ask why? Like if we're following the science and following the data, right? I think Ben Shapiro had a big Twitter thread the other day that was talking about like the actual number of kids that have died from COVID. And while that's obviously tragic,
yeah, of course,
it's less than 500 through the entire freaking thing. So why is there any need for this sort of thing? And on top of that, I think the stat was like between 10 and 20 of those kids didn't have comorbidities. Again, all sad and terrible, but if you're gonna force something on a kid, shouldn't it be warranted? Polio killed like 3 to 5% of the kids that contracted. That seems like a pretty crazy high number. But like, again, nobody's asking why, because it doesn't really make any sense. Kids have more risk of drowning in a pool than they do dying of COVID.
Yeah, and another story I do want to get to for this COVID vaccine mandates is it could cost Border Patrol about half of its agents. So according to a document from a source within Customs and Border Patrol, nearly half of Border Patrol agents have not registered their COVID-19 vaccination status, and about 10% of those who have registered have not yet received at least one dose of the vaccine. So they're saying as of October 25th of this year, 48% of Border Patrol agents have not responded to reporting to the mandate.
Yeah, and while there's millions of people flooding the southern border coming into the United States of America without being required to receive a vaccine, in some sections at the southern border, they are testing them for COVID, but at the same time, if it was such a serious pandemic and you know, like you were saying, it's like
Final
these people don't deal with reality or facts. They literally don't, because you tell them some facts and then they just deny it. This is California we're talking about here, so we can't expect these people to believe anything that's true.
We'll wrap up with this. They said an illegal immigrant doesn't need to get vaccinated, but our Border Patrol does. It doesn't make any sense. We'll see you guys in 90 seconds to talk about China.
Critical race theory is the most racist thing that is being spread in popular life in America.
Critical race theory is bigoted. It is a lie.
Racism is now being taught to our kids.
Dividing kids based on race, trying to say some are oppressors and some are oppressed is absolutely unacceptable.
CRT is racist. It is abusive. It discriminates against one's color.
It's not critical race. It's racism.
Conservatives! POPlitics is now on TPUSA Live. It'll be here every day in case you want to hear me out along with the rest of the Turning Point USA team. Don't miss out on all the conservative.
You have to ask the question, how is the most heavily funded tribe have the poorest population?
Listen to me. My country's very because everything problem here. Don't have petroleum for bus and Cuban, for car, for life, for nothing.
And it sucks. Socialism sucks. There's no other way you can describe it.
TPUSA Live, we got Drew Hernandez Jobob, and we got to talk about China. China.
China.
I miss hearing that from President Trump. China. But what we do know right now is China thinks that we're powerless. They don't respect us whatsoever, and they don't see us as a superpower at all. So they were actually mocking President Biden after his comments at COP26. So climate summit, once again, I think it's just a bunch of just leaders from around the world trying to posture themselves as people that really care. But it's all blah, 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 as Greta Thunberg would say. And this is what President Biden had to say there. When he was apologizing from the previous administration, said that, like, so sorry they got out of the Paris Climate Accord, so sorry about this, that, and the other thing. When he said, I guess I shouldn't apologize, but I do apologize for the fact that the United States, under the last administration, pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement. That kind of put us behind the 8 ball a bit. Jeez. And then now China's saying, well, we don't care.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to force us into this, and don't act like you need to apologize for something they shouldn't have to apologize in.
When Xi didn't even go. President Xi doesn't even go to these things. He stays in China as probably part of his whole, like, China over everything. He's looking inward, but dude didn't even show up to this thing. I constantly, when people talk about the climate change thing, because I think I'm in probably pretty good company. I don't want the environment to be terrible. Like, I appreciate that we live in a place.
But that's what a lot of people think with conservatives. It's like, oh, you don't really care. You guys aren't good stewards of the earth, and you're saying this is all a hoax. It's like, no.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't want dirty air. Have you been to other countries where it has smog everywhere? Like, Thailand is like almost insufferable to be in. But the thing that people don't understand is that the United States, if we completely kneecapped our entire economy, we got rid of all of our fossil fuel usage, we'd eliminate what, like 13% of your CO2 emissions into the planet. If we want to actually take this thing seriously, that's going to mean like literally going to war with China and India, who pollute so much more than the rest of us. So when Joe Biden's up there talking about, well, we're going to do this, this, and this, that's why President Xi's going, good luck, dude. Like, great. You go ahead and kneecap your economy. We'll take full advantage of it.
Yeah, and then no one's expecting them to be there either.
No.
And then no one's keeping them accountable at all. They're like, oh, well, maybe at some point, like, we'll figure out these CO2 emissions.
Yeah.
Probably like decades from now. But at this point, just, especially too, when we come out of this pandemic, that it came from China.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to be reminded of that. That came from that. And they just unleashed this on the world. And then now when we have these climate summits, which I think are a total joke. I think we're all in the same company there. China's saying they're mocking us.
Well,
Yeah.
It makes sense because I think a lot of young people don't understand that this has been like decades in the making. President Trump just pointed it out to millions of people, and his movement brought more awareness to it. So when we talk about China, I think people need to understand is we do have foreign entities in the world that want to see the United States fail, that want to see the United States not at the top any longer. And we can all agree, whether you're Republican or Democrat, China is definitely that country that wants that. And they may not be threatening us with terrorism. They may not be threatening us with, missiles or anything coming over, our borders like that. But there is an economic warfare that has been taking on the United States of America for decades. With the tariffs that have been taking place, they're buying up land here in the United States of America. That stuff
They're doing
matters.
the same thing in Australia,
They're
too.
doing it across the world, but Americans act like that doesn't happen. Like they're like cyber warfare doesn't exist or economic warfare doesn't exist, as if that can't damage you somewhere down the line. And we're going to start to see some of the consequences of that in the very near future. And anytime Donald Trump would come out and even speak of these things, he was immediately called a racist. And it's like, no, this is happening, and these people do want to do this because it exists.
And I want to go off a few of those there too, like especially cybersecurity. That's something that you just don't see. Like you can see them launch rockets here, and I think that's something that we should be terrified about.
Their technology, the advancements in China's technology, and then they're launching nuclear missiles in orbit and space. They're moving forward. They want to move forward technology-wise, and then you get Jen Psaki mocking the Space Force, representing the White House, and it's like, I think when we pull ourselves out of the political aspect of this, there's the foreign aspect of this where world leaders watch the press conferences of presidents. They study them, they watch them, their behavior to see if they're strong. Is he losing his mind? Is he being coherent? Is he actually,
Is he awake?
Is he awake? What's he saying? What can we get away with? What can we, and we'll probably get into that too, but I think, I always know we're talking to young people. Like young people just act like that doesn't exist. Like these people in universities act like the United States of America just doesn't have anybody out there that wants to see us fall. But we have to consider these things.
Well, they're watching press conferences, but they're also watching what happened in Afghanistan. Like especially from a military standpoint, that didn't look good for the United States, and I didn't want that to be as bad as it was. Nobody who loves the United States wanted that to be as bad as it was. But other countries see that sort of stuff, and China's probably going to take full advantage of that.
And then we didn't warn our allies at all. You have General Milley that is warning China and giving them a nice little call because they think that President Trump's going to go and do something wild. Obviously, their politics are showing. But when it comes to our allies, they don't really respect or care for us too much right now either. It's like, well, you're not taking care of us. You're not taking care of your own citizens. How do you expect you to take care of us? It's not going to happen.
This is going to be nuts.
And then speaking of President Trump, this was his statement after President Biden apologized. So he said, "We have never been thought of so poorly as we are right now, including the fact that leaders of foreign countries, just like you were saying, all of whom are at the top of their game." That's something that we need to hit on right now. China, they're at the top of their game, and they feel so empowered, and that's exactly what President Trump is saying here. And they're laughing at President Biden as he makes the rounds in Europe. So low and so bad for America. There's never been a time like it.
I don't want Joe Biden to fail the American people on a foreign policy front for political points. Like, yeah, we can talk about domestic stuff and like, it'd be funny if he did this because then that would mean we get to hit him for that. But on a foreign policy, national security front, we should want the guy to succeed, and unfortunately he's not. And again, I don't want him to fail for political points. It's just a bad situation that we're in, and I don't see it getting much better.
I like that. I like that. You know why that's important is because, like, conservatives or Turning Point or whoever appears to be, centrist or right wing, like, everyone thinks that this is what this is about. Whenever we're talking about Joe Biden or foreign policy, they think it's just trying to score political points, right? We don't do this, right? Especially as like commentators, we're not out here just trying to make great content. We're talking about the real issues. So whenever you hear us talk about these type of issues, where we're talking about foreign policy failures that are going to damage the lives of United States citizens, that's going to hurt everybody in the process. So people need to remove themselves from this polarization of thinking it's always left, it's always right, or you're just saying that because you're a conservative conservative. You're just saying that because you're on the left. No, maybe people are saying things because that's the reality and they actually have a genuine concern for the status of this country in the future. And I think people just need to really start to remove themselves from that mindset, because not everyone, I mean, obviously there are grifters and they say things just to make money, but I guess I could speak for myself and, you know, people that feel and think like me is, you know, we're saying this stuff because people need to wake up to the reality of what's actually taking place.
Yeah, because I don't think there's any conservative out there that's thinking like, oh, hopefully this just keeps getting worse and worse over the next 3 years. It's like, no, like there's people you vote for, people you align with, and sometimes they're not going to win.
Yeah.
And people that you didn't vote for, I think want the best. I know I had so many conversations like that when I was in college. Speaking of President Obama, like I didn't vote for this guy, but I actually do hope he does well. And I hope that like we have just different checks and balances in this country, which I think are beautiful compared to other countries around the world. They don't really have that. And you're going to have some people that you're going to align with. They're going to keep them accountable.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah. But now it's just, I don't think there's anybody out there that's saying, oh, I really hope this just keeps getting worse so like China takes over.
Yeah.
There's no conservative saying that.
No, we don't want that
No.
at all.
No, not at all. And then I think we have to go off the comparison of military power. China is a superpower, and I don't think they see us as a superpower anymore. Just like I said before, they feel empowered. And then when you compare, you have the first female 4-star officer in the military. You have Rachel Levine, a transgender, and actually a man. That is a man. A man, they're saying this first 4-star officer in our military. And then China's laughing at us, and they're like, well, we got these low orbit nuclear capable missiles. Oh, you guys got the first openly transgender 4-star officer. Great, that's going to really be able to fight back when they decide to do something crazy.
Dude, sorry to go off on that tangent a little bit. The whole Rachel Levine thing, maybe they're an incredible general, but the problem is liberals continue to push this equity thing that doesn't actually help the minority people. Like, if they're based on merit entirely, fine. I don't care what people do with their personal life. Maybe you disagree, but I don't actually care. But
don't call them like the first female 4-star officer. Like that's when it just starts like pandering to this small minority of people. Yeah. And that's exactly what other corporations are doing, like we talked about.
Well, but the problem is then you get people looking at that situation and questioning, okay, are they actually good at their job, or are they there to check a box? And when people start thinking about that, I get worried, because I'm a brown guy, and if I'm in a room that I fought my way into and deserve to be there, I don't want people looking around going, okay, is he actually good at what he does, or is he a token brown guy that they need to meet some quota?
Yeah.
So that doesn't...
You know, it's one thing when you see this, what he's describing, you see this happening in like, I don't know, like Starbucks, right? And now you see it in the political world. It's in Hollywood, it's in the music industry, but we're talking about the military, the United States military. So when you take a look at foreign powers and they're saying, what is the United States of America? Let's see a weakness that we can exploit here and maybe take advantage of and maybe propagandize and really get inside here. It looks like the Americans are more concerned with putting in a 4-star general that, you know, is inclusive. That's their agenda. That's what they're concerned with. Rather than putting in someone, like you say, that actually has merit, that could actually do something about us if we try to do something in the future. Are we going to sit here and act like there are foreign powers that don't think that way? You know, while they're thinking about advancement in technology, advancement in their military power, becoming more advanced than the United States of America, let the Americans worry about you know, penises and vaginas while we, you know, advance in our technology and as a military superpower in this world. We cannot sit here and think that that's not happening. That's not a conspiracy theory at all. That's taking place as we speak.
You know what's not happening in China? Them trying to appoint transgenders to the military. Again, they don't care. It's all about merit there, and that's what it should be. The military is a functional organization, not a jobs program.
Yeah, and I think from here to, it's just, it has to break your heart. The way that people are looking at the states now. I know that I have family from overseas and they're looking at the United States, and we're supposed to be the role model. We're supposed to be, especially when it starts with the military, our strength comes from there. I always think back of like, we all love Marvel movies, and then Captain America, you know, that was America our strength. Getting the military together, and that's like,
how it started.
You don't mess with us. But now it's just kind of like, you have these, like General Milley, And then even President Biden and VP Harris saying diversity is our strength when it comes to military. No, our enemies don't care. They don't care if you're male, female, pansexual, cisgender, whatever. They're out there to take over, and they're there to push their power on us. And now if they think the United States, all they're worried about is the color of your skin, what you identify as, that's not going to win wars. You're not going to be able to fight back with your pronouns. You fight back with strength and military power. And then you got China for sure. I know what happened with that Afghanistan withdrawal. They're working with the Taliban right away. Look at that. All of a sudden, China just said, oh, they're the leaders. They're the leaders of that area right away. They said that. They didn't wait a second.
Yeah. I don't know, you said diversity is our strength in the military. I don't think diversity is ever our strength. Our strength is unity in all regards of everything that America does. We're all unity. And what's happening with them appointing people just to check a box is you're just dividing that unity. Yeah, you're creating more diversity, I guess, but is it beneficial? Diversity of thought is great. I love it. I think you should have more of it. But it's not our core strength. Our core strength of America is being unified as a country and as a people, like China is currently. They have a whole of China approach to become the world dominant power. That's just what they're trying to do, and they're not hiding it.
With just about 40 seconds left, what do you think China's going to look like by the end of this administration?
Man, I think China is definitely going to become more wealthy. I think they're going to put themselves in a financial superior position above the United States of America, and Joe Biden is not going to do anything about it. I think on the world stage, and we're probably going to talk about Taiwan later, I think China is going to, they smell blood in the water, and they see an opportunity that they may not get again for, who knows, they don't know, right? Trump really did some damage for them, right? Trump was taken out of the picture. Now they got a puppet that's willing to do anything. I think they're going to pounce on that opportunity immediately and not wait any longer, because they may not have it for at the end of the next 4 years.
Yeah, I agree. In 90 seconds, we're going to be back with Quarantine, Marry, Jail. See you soon.
This has all happened before. The riots, violence, church burning, attacks on police, destruction of private property.
My name is Sammy Steigman. I am a Holocaust survivor.
This is the reality of what happens when you have capitalism that goes to socialism.
El socialismo no funciona. El socialismo no funciona.
Well, welcome back to TPUSA Live. We're at TPUSA HQ with these two. We got Jobob, Drew Hernandez. You two have never played this game before. We played it for the first time just about a week or so ago. It's called Quarantine, Marry, Jail. You might have heard the alternative. I'm not going to bring that up, what that is exactly, but I'm going to give you three names, and you're going to have to tell me this person you want to quarantine with them, you'd like to marry them, or send them straight to jail.
Okay.
All right.
You ready to rock? All right. This first one, we're going to throw it up on the screen. Here we go. Lizzo, Kim Kardashian, Hailey Bieber. Quarantine, marry, jail.
So this is, they go into quarantine, or I have to quarantine with this person?
You have to quarantine with one of those people.
Oh my gosh.
I would quarantine with Kim Kardashian because I have a lot of questions for her.
You wouldn't marry her? She's a billionaire.
I'm already married, so I
Well,
would. I
okay,
would.
yeah, but I think
I would quarantine with Kim because she's married to Kanye, and maybe I could somehow meet Kanye through. There's just a lot of reasons why.
Are they actually still married?
Nobody knows.
Nobody
I have
really
no
knows.
idea. Pete Davidson's on roller coasters holding Kim Kardashian's hand. I have no idea.
I'm being told that they are no longer married. This is when we need Alex Clark. Alex Clark, where are you? We
She
need this
was
pop
married
culture
to
help.
Kanye. I don't know.
But
I think Kanye's still saying they're married. He was like on a podcast last night, still
Instagram is
saying
still
it.
Kardashian.
Yeah.
And then you got
These
Haley.
are the important issues.
Oh, it's super important. We only hit you with the hard-hitting news here in this segment. Haley Bieber and Lizzo. So what are you going to do with those two? Quarantine with one of those?
I can't stand Lizzo, so I'd just jail her.
I would quarantine with Haley Bieber for the same reasons of eventually meeting Justin Bieber. I think that would be super cool. And Kim Kardashian, she's got so much money, like so much money. Financial reasons, I would definitely marry her. And Lizzo, unfortunately, is the de facto going to jail as she's the last left in the
Yeah, I think we're in the same boat. Lizzo, she's going straight to jail, especially after what she wore at her Halloween party. No one should ever see that.
Yeah, I will never.
Also, don't look it up. Just take my word for it that it's the worst. It's not good. Then I think I would quarantine with Kim Kardashian and Haley Bieber.
You would quarantine with both of them?
No, I'd marry Haley Bieber. So I'd quarantine with Kim Kardashian, and then
Not
I'd
as
marry
many
Haley
zeros
Bieber.
in her bank account, dude.
I know, but she's a hell of a good-looking gal. That's what I'll say. So this next one, we got this one. You guys are gonna like this one. Hillary Clinton is in this one. Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama, and First Lady Jill Biden. Quarantine, marry, jail.
What kind of sick, twisted game is this?
Welcome to TPUSA Live, Jobob.
What?
Oh, those are three incredible options.
Well, I gotta think through all the variables. Like, I almost don't want to send Hillary Clinton to jail at risk of my own safety. Right? Is that weird? Maybe I want to marry her just to
There's more
self-preservation
Clintons out there.
I'm thinking, let me see. Who was the other one? Oh, Dr. Joe Biden. I would probably quarantine with Dr. Jill Biden just so that I could call her Miss Jill Biden and annoy her constantly, not use the doctoral term. But that's just me being rude. Then I really probably would marry Hillary Clinton, again, out of self-preservation. And unfortunately, I think Michelle Obama would go to... I think she would be the most interesting to talk to for a long time, but I think trying to...
Could you imagine being in quarantine with Dr. Jill Biden here in Cisse Podway every day?
Cisse Podway!
Cisse Podway! Where are you going
I think I'm kind of on the same page with you on there, because like at first you're like, jail is almost like synonymous with Hillary Clinton because you just want to see her like gone.
How long are we talking? Are we talking like a lifetime
Yeah,
sentence?
but
Like,
it's
do I send her for a month? And
but
now
you're
she's just
right.
angry?
Let's say this is a lifetime
But what
sentence.
happens to me? What happened? Like you're saying, what happens to you if you're the reason why Hillary Clinton goes to jail? It's like, oh yeah, I think Joe Bob's right. I might get killed. I think I'm on the same page with him on this one.
Cool. Yeah, I think we're all on the same page here. Yeah, we're all going to stay with that one. This next one, just one of the best dudes out there. Chris Pratt is in this list.
Oh,
Chris
God
Pratt,
bless him.
Megan Fox, Jennifer Aniston. Quarantine, marry, jail.
I would imagine because of Friends syndication, Jennifer Aniston has a lot of money, which that
I love how
drives
this
all
all
of my
comes down to
choices.
like, how many zeros in the bank account?
This is where I get my full. So I'd probably. Oh no! Then I'd have to. Who was the other one? There's
So you have
Jennifer
Chris
Aniston,
Pratt, Megan Fox, and Jennifer Aniston.
Megan Fox is going to jail. I can't handle the thumbs. I'm just kidding. If you were in high school around the 2009 Transformer eras, you get that joke.
Oh yeah.
I'd quarantine with Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
We'd come out
Oh, no
jacked.
doubt. Oh yeah.
Just like do push-ups all day, every day. And I think Jennifer Aniston has enough zeros for my liking.
I think we'd all come out funnier too if we were quarantined with Chris Pratt.
Funnier,
Just a
better
great dude.
looking. He just might rub off on you. Taller, I'd be taller.
So you got Megan Fox, Jennifer Aniston, Chris Pratt.
I'm a huge Chris Pratt fan, so I'm gonna quarantine with him. And if I was a woman, I would probably marry Chris Pratt. So I think we got to have a little bit more context here. But obviously, I'm not a homosexual. But I definitely would probably marry Megan Fox and what was the other one? Jail Jennifer Aniston. Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer. Why would I don't even have a reason for that. But I guess that's all that's left.
I'm quarantined with Chris Pratt. That would be fantastic. Megan Fox, going to jail. Great job with Transformers.
Yeah,
and,
love
and everything
Transformers.
you're doing right now. But you're going to jail. Jennifer Aniston, welcome to life.
For a
with John.
lifetime sentence too. Wow.
Oh, gonzo.
Because John upped it to a lifetime sentence.
Yeah, that's what it is now.
She's
Especially
not
with all
old,
the
too.
PDA they got going on. That's enough. Like,
It's a long time.
Go to jail. go to jail. You're on this next one. Ooh, you're gonna like this. Congresswoman AOC, VP Kamala Harris, and Sarah Palin. Quarantine, marry, kill. Or not quarantine. I'm so used to the other one. Quarantine, marry, jail. I'm so used to the other one.
I already forgot the last two. What is it? There's Congresswoman
You
AOC.
got Congresswoman AOC, VP Kamala Harris, and Sarah Palin. You got that up on the screen right there.
I would probably marry Congresswoman AOC. Do like a what's it called? James Carville and Mary Madeline, right? They're like two opposing. I don't know. I think she's interesting. I guess she's wrong about everything, but she's interesting.
It's interesting how wrong she is all the time.
Yeah, it'd be fun to talk about. Like,
it'd be fun to see you on her Instagram lives.
How do you have an economics degree from a university and think the way you think? This is going to take a lifetime to explain.
She could teach you how to bartend too. I'm sure that would be great. What do you think, Drew? You got Congresswoman AOC, VP Harris, and Sarah Palin.
Okay, jail for VP Harris. Jail for VP Harris, and then marry Sarah Palin, and I would love to quarantine with AOC because that's someone that if I was like put in a position where she was forced to be around me, there's a lot I have to say. Just being
that
honest.
confined space would just be like closing in. This is this is the worst. All right, I think I'd be the same as you. I'm the same there. This next one we got. Vanessa Hudgens.
Oh.
Harry Styles. Daddy Dave Portnoy.
Well, I'm clearly marrying Dave Portnoy.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the zeros. Dude is like $500 million. Vanessa Hudgens. I have a very funny Vanessa Hudgens story that I'm not going to tell right now. But I'd probably
and let's say for this one, disclaimer, this is Harry Styles in a dress.
Oh, that changes things.
Yeah, it does change it a little bit.
This makes it a whole new ball game. Now he's going to jail. I'd probably send Harry Styles to jail in quarantine with Vanessa Hudgens.
What do you think? You got Vanessa Hudgens, Harry Styles, Dave Portnoy.
Marry Vanessa Hudgens and Harry Styles. You said he's going to jail, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to jail, and then quarantine with the last.
I want to change
my answer. It would be fun to quarantine with El Presidente, Barstool Dave Portnoy.
I'd rather
put
do
on
that.
so many incredible parlays. We'd be a part of the Overs Club. We'd bet on every sports game.
Because you'd be friends afterward.
Oh, it would be great. This next one. Oh, you're gonna like this. Aaron Rodgers, Joe Rogan, Miley Cyrus. Quarantine, marry, jail.
What did Joe Rogan's Spotify deal make him? $100 million? That's pretty clear. Gonna go with, actually. Yeah, I'm going to marry Joe Rogan, send Miley to jail, and hang out with Aaron Rodgers for a couple days. I can go right now.
That sounds pretty
What
accurate.
if we went right now?
That sounds pretty
quarantine
accurate.
with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate.
Actually, I think I'd quarantine with Joe Rogan because I feel like the place that he would have, it would just he's ready for the end of the world. So we'd have everything we possibly need. And
you're
then
right.
I'm definitely marrying Aaron Rodgers. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you could be Mustache Brothers.
Oh yeah, I'd go to the
I could
Jeopardy
too.
studio and he'd learn how to show me how to look like an absolute slob, grow out some hair, look greasy.
I'm basically Aaron Rodgers right now.
You basically are Aaron Rodgers right now. But that's seriously one of our favorite games. And then Miley Cyrus, she's going to jail. She is.
Oh, why?
she's going in like a wrecking ball, straight to jail.
Yeah,
that's
straight
what
to
she's
jail.
doing.
Get rid of
But coming up next, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of Commiefornia. See you in 90 seconds.
This is your brain. This is your brain on socialism. Any questions?
Conservatives! POPlitics is now on TPUSA Live. It'll be here every day in case you want to hear me out along with the rest of the Turning Point USA team. Don't miss out on all the conservative.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got Drew Hernandez, investigative reporter. We got a comedian, actor.
Sure, yeah. Keep going.
Musician.
Yeah.
What else? What else do you want to be today?
Bad golfer.
Bad golfer.
Definitely
yeah,
one.
I think we're all in the same boat there. But we got Jobob with us, and we're all in the same boat because we lived in California for a long time. A couple of us were able to escape to Arizona. You're still in California.
Trying to pack my bags
But let me rephrase that. Commiefornia.
Commiefornia.
That's what we need to talk about. So, what's been your view of California, living in there? You've been there your entire life, right?
Yeah.
And then now, throughout the pandemic, we're out of it. You got a supply chain crisis at the LA ports.
Yeah.
Everything. What's been your view? Because you're in Southern California.
Oh, I'm in Southern California. Everything is more expensive. Here's the thing. I would love to move to Arizona. The problem is that your state income tax is not nearly high enough. I really, really appreciate paying a ton of state income tax, and your roads are too good. We were driving on the Uber. There were no bumps. I love the feeling of going over constant bumps. It's like you're on Indiana Jones. Disneyland.
Oh, yeah,
it's like a free Disneyland trip. So thank you, Governor Gavin Newsom, for maintaining such a lifestyle that I enjoy so much.
Yeah, don't you miss spending thousands of dollars for roads that just never get fixed?
California is just a failed state, man. It definitely is. I mean, I think one of the things that is just so devastating about California is like it's so beautiful, you know?
It's an incredibly beautiful place.
It's so beautiful, and just to watch it, like you're driving in downtown LA, or you're driving down Hollywood, or even like Venice Beach, and it's just a failed state. Like it looks horrible, and the people I think are the biggest problem, because there's been an exodus. There's been millions of people that have left California, and I think we're starting to see how that's going to turn out now, because there are millions of people that are in California that just are brainwashed, and they just follow all the commie agendas.
And then you see places pushing back now. So there was a cool story out of Oroville, which is about 90 miles outside of the state capital of Sacramento. Place I grew up in Sacramento most of my life.
Hecka sick, bro.
Hella tight, for sure. But they adopted a resolution this week stating that they would oppose state and federal orders it deems to be government overreach. And they're becoming a constitutional republic there in Oroville. So they voted on this, and they said the town of Oroville is declare themselves that constitutional republic in response to the COVID-19 health restrictions imposed by Governor King Newsom. You
know why this is funny, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if people know about this thing that don't live in California, but California declared itself a sanctuary state to be completely exempt from the federal government's immigration policy. They're just becoming a sanctuary city. They're throwing it right back in Governor King Gavin Newsom's face. I love it.
Exactly. And then last year, too, Oroville refused to enforce state requirements for prohibiting indoor dining. Also, Butte County, where Oroville is, it's declined to recommend a mask mandate. So Oroville, as the kids would say, the place is based.
Yeah, but
it's a good spot in California.
You know what else is... Are people aware that the United States of America is a constitutional republic? So well, how did we get to this place where a little town in California has to declare itself a constitutional republic? Like how far have we gone? Like we've fallen so far off this tree that we have little towns in a constitutional republic that have to declare themselves a constitutional republic. I'm going to say this over and over again. This is not good.
The funny part about that is they voted for it on Tuesday, and the final vote was 6-1. And the person that voted against it was basically saying that, where it's like, we're already a constitutional republic. So they're just like, hey, this was just like politics. But in general, it's a funny story when you see that.
The term Commiefornia is completely appropriate for this. Like,
this is a tangent, but if you're a publicly traded company and you lie to your investors or your shareholders, what happens to you?
Later.
You get investigated by the SEC. Governor King Gavin Newsom is
I love that we're calling him that. 501c3 nonprofit.
Governor King Gavin Newsom constantly, there's a recall in California. He went all big on this whole idea that California has a surplus. Straight lie. We do not have a surplus. California has huge unfunded pension liabilities. That is not a sexy thing to talk about, so we won't get into that. But California is in massive debt. So at what point does the SEC investigate the governor of California for lying to its shareholders, the California people? Sorry, a little bit of a tangent, but that's been irritating me, and especially when we're talking about Commiefornia, I want to bring it up. Do not let your state become Commiefornia wherever it is you live in the United States, unless you're New York, in which case we're all lost.
Well, I think that's what we can appreciate at a place like California, because there's still like a part of my heart that cares about California. Always will. There was a time like I wanted to leave. I was living in the Bay Area, and especially when the pandemic hit, that was the worst place to be. We felt like we were months and months behind every other place here. I would go and visit my friends here in Phoenix, and then I'd go back to there. It's like you feel like you're living in a totally different world.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's a mass exodus, but there's also people staying and trying to enact change. And it's going to be a long fight. I know just like Charlie talks about this culture war, this is not just like a couple year fight. This could be like 40, 50 years. So it might take a long time, decades, or maybe even just generations to get California on track, if that's even possible.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, when you take a look at, and I don't want people to get it twisted, I'm not mocking the idea of a constitutional republic. I just think it's sad that that has to actually even be said in the United States of America. But to go to your point, I mean, look at Venezuela. Look at Cuba. How long has it taken them to finally say, yeah, maybe communism is a bad idea? It takes decades for people because it looks good, it sounds good, but if people aren't going to learn based off of information and facts, they will learn through experience. So when you look at New York, you look at California, you look at cultural Marxism has gone mainstream. It's not only socialism, it has just gone straight to just mainstream communism. Through Black Lives Matter, that's another conversation. But I think, you know, people that are just like, oh yeah, we should get behind this in California, and they're voting this way, they may not realize they made a bad decision, like you said. In my personal opinion, this is going to be a generational issue that has to be fixed over time.
And I like the way you put that too, because the left does such a great job marketing and the way they change words and then their packaging of things too. Have you guys seen Jingle All the Way? I hate to bring up a Christmas movie in November, because I'm also one of those people like, hey,
no, we're together.
Listen to Christmas music after Thanksgiving.
After Thanksgiving,
we don't need to go. We don't need to go.
Another argument we
don't need to go on that. We don't need to go on that tangent. But Jingle All the Way, where he's trying to look for a Turbo Man for his kid, and it's all packaged. It's all packaged, and it looks just like the regular Turbo Man. And then he pays for it. Pays way too much, and then it's the wrong language. And then when you open the box, it just all falls apart. So I feel like that's what I think the left tries to do, is like they try to package and market these things. We're like, see, this is good. Like this is not like regular socialism. This is democratic socialism. This is what it is. And when you find out it's not the right language, and it falls apart right when you try to open it up. That's my analogy. Probably better than the analogy we heard from that professor yesterday.
This guy said that peeing in your pants is the same thing as wearing a mask. So you should pee in your pants to protect other people.
That sounds like leftist logic. Was that any university?
No, it was at of course it was at university.
My goodness.
Utica College. Utica College. You missed that yesterday, and anybody that missed that in the show, it was basically this. You had this professor, ProfessorWatchlist.org. I know we're talking about Commiefornia, but this was such a funny part of yesterday's episode, where someone sneezed and they pulled their mask down and they sneezed into their arm, and this professor just freaked out. And he had this whole analogy about like, well, you know, if you went to the bathroom and you peed, and you could pee on other people, but if you had your pants on, you just pee your own pants. And it's like, what are we talking about here? Like, you go to the bathroom to use the stall or something. But
with all that said, wear your mask.
It's just,
if that doesn't convince you, nothing will.
Imagine paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to be taught by that guy and going into student debt for someone like that.
But this is something I want to cover in Commiefornia. So there's a new East Bay facility in Emeryville. So they have lab-grown meat plants, and they plan on producing 400,000 pounds of that lab meat per year. So this huge facility, so it's designed to produce hundreds of thousands of pounds of cultured meat This opened up Thursday in Emeryville, and they're saying it's a step closer to rapidly growing industry where meat is grown from animal cells without any need for slaughter. And so this report said they predict the market for cultivated meat could reach $25 billion by 2030. But I think the funny part about this here is everyone tries to say like, well, you know, PETA comes out and says like, don't call it a bullpen, call it an arm barn. And they're trying to say like the slaughter of animals. Obviously, like, we want animals to be treated well. Yeah. But to pretend like this is going to save the planet somehow, some way, the U.S. government still hasn't approved the sale of cultivated meat because they haven't seen enough evidence to show that actually that's helping the environment or actually best for the animals.
Did you guys know that animals were never killed for food up until about the 50s when white cisgendered males decided to kill animals? Never in the history had an animal ever been killed. Oh wait, actually no, it's been happening since the dawn of time.
Yep.
What? I mean, I'm not anti making alternative meat. You're more than welcome to have it. You do you. But okay, gonna be a $30 billion industry, you said? Maybe we should invest. I don't know.
Oh man, but it's interesting too. So unlike plant-based meats, cultivated meat is actually animal-based and like fleshly meat. So you've seen like Burger King, they have like the Impossible Burger, which I don't think I've been to Burger King since I was like 6. But I definitely, like, if I went to Burger King, I'm getting a Whopper, and I'm getting a real deal.
You go there every week to get that little crown and then prance around your apartment saying, I am the king.
I can't believe you'd out me like that. All right. No, I'm going to In-N-Out every single time.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go.
That's what I'm doing. But this is something that California is pushing too. This is a part of their staple. It's like, hey, we care about the climate, all this stuff. Like, keep paying all these taxes, and we won't fix the roads, but hey, we got some cultivated meat that's not real meat that we're going to do, and we're going to spend all this money on.
It's a religion, man, especially when you look at the climate change stuff. Like, there's literally a way you're supposed to live your life. You have to eat the certain things, you have to eat the right things, you have to live a certain way, you have to minimize your carbon footprint as small as possible, even to the point of the type of deodorant you use. Like, it's literally like a legalistic religion, and you will get excommunicated if anybody in this religion finds out that your carbon footprint is not as small as it should be. And like, literally, these people get aggressive. I don't know if you guys have ever been to one of these like climate change protests with these leftists.
We let you do that.
Dude,
and then we live vicariously through you.
They're aggressive, like aggressive. Like, they're willing to fight over this kind of stuff, like to defend their beliefs and values. It's like, okay, I get it, but if someone, because these people literally believe that the world's gonna end in 12 years. And when you communicate that to a human being, they're going to get to that kind of level where they're willing to do anything to survive. But it's kind of like, is that actually true?
We covered that on the show too. Like, so Congresswoman AOC, who some of you would quarantine with, some you would jail, and
my future wife.
This guy would marry.
Just kidding.
In that situation, is saying like, well, basically, there's going to be parts of the country by 2038 unlivable. That's literally what they're saying. So it's just revolving door. You're constantly seeing this. It's just alarmist, fear-mongering, always.
It worries me how safe California public officials feel in their job. King Governor Gavin Newsom, he doesn't think anybody's going to take him out, especially after this recall thing. Really quick, interesting Gavin Newsom story. This is 100% a true story. I'm sitting in a Starbucks. I ran a guy against Governor King Gavin Newsom when he wasn't the governor. We were putting together a commercial that was a hit piece on King Governor Gavin Newsom. Guess who walks in the door? King Governor Gavin Newsom. I say hello. I am cordial with the guy. Yeah. And I say, you're never going to believe this, but we're actually putting together a hit piece on you right now. You know what he says to me? Cool, good luck. And then walks and gets his coffee. True story, 100%. Actually happened. And again, he's so comfortable because California is so far off the deep end that he doesn't even worry about real formidable opponents that are coming up in the political space.
Yeah, and I think finally, as we wrap up, just about a minute left. I mean, I think there's a reason like King Governor Gavin Newsom is going to the French Laundry, because he knows, like, I don't care what's going on with your kids. If they're not able to attend school, my kids are going to some private school here. They don't have to wear masks. They don't have to follow the other rules. and he just knows that, like, I can get away with it. Yeah, that should sicken everybody there.
Yeah, his ridiculous press conference he had about that. Oh, it was an early dinner. Oh, cool. It's all fine then.
Well, you have to remember that COVID is nocturnal.
It is.
There was a reason there was curfews in place.
And he was sitting down, so it goes over your head, especially if you're in a restaurant, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wear your masks. We all do this little charade where we wear a mask into the restaurant, and then we sit down, then it's fine. Everybody's okay. We're good.
No, it's kind of like the plagues, too. So actually, you could nail your vaccination card or your mask over your doorframe, and then the shadow of death of COVID will just go right over. Coming up next, we got one last thing. Talk about Aaron Rodgers. See you soon.
In these United States of America, this great country of ours, we American Indians, we can be anything we want to be, except American Indians.
A lot of the soldiers were very aggressive, so the women did get raped.
What we call huerte. Huerte means a place of suffering, dying, starvation, nothing good. Just like the Nazi concentration camps.
I didn't realize how corrupt things were. I didn't realize what kind of environment we were living in.
We had no running water, we had no power.
They de-incentivize people from, opportunity.
That's why our suicide rate has climbed up astronomical rates.
I moved from the poorest county in America, the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, to the richest area in the country, the Navajo Indian Reservation. There is no difference. The poorest and richest reservations in our nation suffer from identical problems. This is not anything new. This is an everyday occurrence in all tribal governments.
So my life and my tale and my truth has been to fight socialism. And I'm hoping that I can wake up as many Navajos as I can to tell them that you can do this. Yeah, even if I have to fight you to save you. And I think that's what I'm also projecting to my people. Even though they are so harsh on social media and they completely hammer at me, I tell them, I'll be here even if I have to fight you to save you.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got time for one last thing before we wrap it up with Drew and Jobob. So, Aaron Rodgers, probably, I would say, the best quarterback in the NFL right now. You got Kyler Murray looking good, Lamar Jackson, but they are not in the spotlight when it comes to vaccination status. So, earlier in the season, he had a press conference and said he was immunized. No media member was pushing back, and I think they just assumed that that meant vaccinated.
See what you did there.
So when I see what you did there, Aaron Rodgers, but in that press conference, everybody just assumed, and he's had to follow all the NFL's protocols, which I think are absolutely ridiculous in the first place, but he tested positive for COVID this week, so he's not able to play on Sunday, and then that's when the wheels started turning.
Oh, he's still alive?
So,
I just assumed he had died.
No,
right? Isn't that what happens when you get the Chinese bat fever?
Oh yeah, he's done. Yeah, but he's still alive. Don't worry.
Yeah, he's still alive. Just
Aaron Rodgers still alive. He'll be your Jeopardy host and the quarterback for the Packers. But he was pushing back on the media, like people like Stephen A. Smith. just saying, oh, he's a liar. I can't believe he would lie to us, and he needs to tell us everything about his personal health, and he should get suspended. But Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee's show. I don't know if you guys have ever tuned into that at all, but one of the greatest personalities in sports right now, and he actually has a weekly spot on Pat McAfee's show, and he explained exactly why he went about the way he went about it, and he's pushing back on the woke mob. Check out this video.
First of all, I didn't lie in the initial press conference. During that time, it was a very, witch hunt that was going on across the league, where everybody in the media was so concerned about who was vaccinated and who wasn't, and what that meant, and who was being selfish, and who would talk about it, and what it meant if they said it's a personal decision. They shouldn't have to disclose their own medical information and whatnot. And at the time, my plan was to say that I've been immunized. It wasn't some sort of ruse or lie, it was the truth. And I'll get into the whole immunization in a second.
But he went on to say, too, that I'm not anti-vax, I'm not a flat earther. That's what a lot of people have tried to say about Kyrie Irving and Jonathan Isaac and anybody else that's pushing back on the vaccine. They're not some sort of conspiracy theorist. He said, I have an allergy to an ingredient that's in the mRNA vaccines. I have found a long-term immunization protocol to protect myself, and I'm very proud of the research that went into that. And I feel like that has to be respected, because every single one of his teammates and his coaching staff, everybody that's a member of the Packers organization, knew that he was unvaccinated. And I think it's just media trying to just overblow this whole situation.
It's just the woke mob isn't concerned, like we were talking about at the beginning of the show. They're not concerned with facts or science or anything that has to do with reality. If it just appears to be their opponent, the radical left is going to pounce on it, and they're going to try and propagandize it and turn it into something that it's actually not. And I think that's a perfect example of that, because it's like, no, I'm not anti-vax. I just kind of want to know what I'm doing with my own body. Is that okay with you guys, or no? Is that like a bad thing? But apparently to these people it is. Like they see that. They don't even want to know what was your reasoning behind not wanting to take the vaccine, which is totally okay. I mean, even if you want to take the vaccine, that's totally okay too. But this is becoming so polarized, they don't even want to know what's going on. They just want to, he doesn't want it, anti-vaxxer. And then somewhere down the line, President Trump supporter.
What are people mad about? I'm actually curious. Are they mad about him not taking the COVID shot, or are they mad at him lying?
They're saying that he wasn't forthcoming. They're trying to say that.
So they're mad at him lying about it.
Yeah.
So they should all de facto be mad at the current president of the United States then, for lying about things constantly, right?
Amen.
Does that math work out? I don't know.
You heard it in the Let's Go Brandon song by Bryson Gray. It's just like, well, if you get the vaccine, you're not going to get COVID. It's just at the beginning of the song. That's why I love how that song starts. Let's go, Brandon. But that's where it's like, you're not going to hear them talk about that. But no, like Kyrie Irving's the worst.
Well,
and who, Aaron Rodgers is the worst.
Who, provided it is the COVID shot thing that people are upset about, who's hurt by him not deciding to get it? I don't know. Is there anybody that is like, I am personally aggrieved by Aaron Rodgers not taking the COVID shot? Yeah. And if so, why do you think that?
I think from here, too, I think a lot of people, this is very sarcastic, want him to show his papers. So I think this is something that he should show to the woke mob. I am vaxxed. Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have seen, I think that's from the replacement, say like, I am 12. So if he starts bringing his COVID vaccine papers like that, I think everyone will be like, okay, checks out.
It looks like a lot like mine, interestingly enough. I have a theory. You want to hear my theory? I think it was Patrick Mahomes. I think he didn't want to face him this Sunday.
Maybe that's what
I think it is.
I think the Packers could still get the win. That's just me. But make sure you get your tickets to AmericaFest, TPUSA.com/AmericaFest. Use promo code Jon, Jon, for 25% off. Drew, Jobob, this has been fantastic. Coming up next, the Spillover with Alex Clark. See you on Monday. Bye.
I've got a special invitation for all of you. Are you listening? Because I have some 5 Orange juicy details to share. Okay, that was really weird. December 18th to the 21st here in the beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, Turning Point USA is throwing the biggest party of the year, America Fest. Now, what is it? Okay. We're inviting all of our friends from the conservative movement, and you, of course. And basically, you're going to have a chance to hear from the biggest speakers in the movement and personalities and celebrities that you know and love who are conservative. Kayleigh McEnany, Congressman Madison Cawthorn, Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, and today's guest, Jack Posobiec, just to name a few. There's also going to be tons and tons of your favorite country artists. 2 full nights of country concerts with stars like Brantley Gilbert, Ray Lynn, and Russell Dickerson. So come sing your little hearts out. Tickets are going very fast, especially because Christmas is coming up and people are kind of giving America Fest tickets as early Christmas gifts. Hint, hint, that's a good idea. Go to tpusa.com/AmericaFest to get your ticket to the party, and you can use code Alex for 25% off, especially for you. The Spillover and America Fest are powered by Turning Point USA, a.k.a. the very best. I cannot wait to see all of your beautiful faces and give you a smooch. Okay, that's an HR violation. The best time of the week is back, baby. The Spillover with me, Alex Clark. I love pop culture, politics, juicy headlines, and obviously, cute conservatives. We also have a big weakness for crime stories. So today, I have got the scoop on an organization with an agenda that's pretty sus, if not potentially criminal. It's called the Great Reset, and it's a total reset of the global economy. And basically, COVID-19 was the catalyst to get this done. And before you at me, know that this is not a conservative conspiracy theory or something weird like that. It's being openly discussed by people from all backgrounds. Last year at the World Economic Forum, they announced publicly that they were launching the Great Reset Initiative. The founder and chairman of the World Economic Forum said this, okay? Just hear me out. He said, the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economies, from education to social contracts and working conditions. Every country, from the United States to China, must participate, and every industry, from oil and gas to tech, must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. Little spoopy, don't you think? Now, John Kerry, who is President Biden's special climate envoy or czar, or whatever the heck he is, he said that the Biden administration will not only support the Great Reset, they will make sure it, quote, happens with greater speed and with greater intensity than a lot of people might imagine. Heads of major corporations from places like Bank of America and Microsoft have spoken in favor of the Great Reset or a new economic era. And not only have they spoken up about it, they attended the forum. Everyone was there. The who's who of the world was there, from tech giants to Prince Charles. And 2 key parts to the Great Reset that really explain what its objectives are 1, social programs like free healthcare, a guaranteed government job, the Green New Deal, typical socialist garbage. And 2, it will require that businesses be evaluated not only on how much money they make and normal things like that, but on how much woke criteria they meet. They're going to be rated on this system called an ESG score. Okay, so what does this stand for? The E stands for environment. How is your company helping with all the climate change stuff like carbon emissions and waste reduction? The S is for social, which is social justice causes, which immediately reminded me of that Yelp initiative to rate businesses based on how, quote unquote, racist they are. And the G is governance. Sort of responsibly handling the money side of your business and stuff like that, but also like how much are you willing to give in and kind of bow to the mob type of thing. Like I said, these major players are eating this stuff up. More than 80% of large companies here in the US already have ESG scores. If you don't believe me, you can Google company ESG scores. You will see everything from Facebook to McDonald's. And fun fact about Facebook, Last week, they changed their company name to Meta because Mark Zuckerberg wants there to basically be an Earth for elites, and then the rest of us peasants, like you and I, will be forced to live out our lives virtually only. We will own nothing, and we will be happy. We will rent everything in the real world, and we will just live virtually. We will meet virtually. We will do work virtually, everything. And here's what's crazy. Companies like Google and Facebook score low on their ESG scores. Sounds ironic, right? Well, Facebook scored low because, get this, they don't censor enough. My question is, if Facebook level censorship isn't good enough for these globalists, what is? How much more can we censor people? The whole point of this ESG rating system with the Great Reset is to essentially see who is with the woke and who is against the woke. Who is willing to play by their rules and who isn't? Companies that don't play along will be punished by not being able to create bank accounts and things like that. And I know what you're thinking. Why would a company alienate half of their customers by, say, censoring, all of their conservative customers? That's a lot of money that you're missing out on, right? Well, those at the top of this Great Reset agenda are richer than all of us conservatives combined. We are nothing to them, and our money equates not even a drop in the bucket compared to their wealth and power. The goal is to turn us into a renter society, one where you will own nothing, like I said, and like it. Well, I don't, and I know you don't, and I know Jack Posobiec doesn't. So, joining me today to chat all about the Great Reset and the future of China in America is the senior editor of Human Events, host of the show Human Events Daily, author of the Antifa, Stories from Inside the Black Bloc, TPUSA contributor, and Twitter antagonist extraordinaire. He's also my friend and the first big conservative to pay attention to my work and even believe in me before I ever worked at Turning Point USA, which a lot of people don't know. Please welcome my friend, Jack Posobiec. I'm just being completely honest, Jack. A slogan like the Great Reset seems very conspiratorial, but this is very real, isn't it? Is it already here or is it coming soon?
Yeah, no, you're in the Great Reset. You're living the Great Reset. The Great Reset was at the World Economic Forum. So, Davos, which is this huge organization, and it's this huge meeting that's held in Switzerland. They took time off for coronavirus, for COVID-19. Now they're bringing it back. They literally meet top of the world, and these huge Western elites, massive power over finance, over militaries in the West, some of the most powerful military forces in the world, of course. They meet and they decide essentially how they want the world to be run in the West. And these people control trillions and trillions of dollars of wealth. BlackRock is a huge part of this group. And so the World Economic Forum, which is run by Klaus Schwab, is the one that puts on Davos every year, and they have all these various members. So they came up with the term Great Reset. June 2020 was the first time this was held. And what they said was, because of the auspices of COVID-19, that because all of economic activity had kind of paused, right? It's sort of like the world kind of took a year off, especially in the West, that they said a lot of these things, like the Green Movement, the Green New Deal, a lot of the ways that they're planning to reform, what they call it, reform market capitalism, reform our economy, reform the way everything is done. They're going to kick it into high gear and introduce things that they had been planning to introduce maybe 5-10 years down the road. They're going to do it now, and they're going to do it all at once. They're calling it what? Stakeholder capitalism, collective capitalism, if you will. And the idea being that these companies are going to be pushing this idea of a shared governance, right? So have you heard this phrase ESG?
Yes. I talked about that and I explained all what ESG is, the scoring metric that they're going to use.
ESG is a corporate credit score. So China has this idea of a social credit score. Well, now the ESG is your corporate credit score, your corporate social credit score. So you are now being told by these corporations, everyone's given a rating. The same way that, if you went to go apply for a credit card, if you went to go apply for a loan, like they would do your credit rating, do a credit check, right? Well, now these companies, if they want to get a loan, they have to do an ESG check. And by the way, this applies to some of the most powerful, this applies to Facebook, this applies to Zuckerberg, Twitter, Dorsey, etc. All of them. If they want to get more money, if they want to get more loans, if they want a better rating for their stock prices, then they have to go through this ESG system. And this is what's being pushed by BlackRock and Blackstone, some of these massive What they are is essentially they're money management firms. And so there's a difference between a money management firm, an investment firm, and all these other different types of things. But the basic way to look at it is this. You are seeing the implementation through what's called the Great Reset of left-wing woke ideology, the Green New Deal, all of these different economic forums, all these different economic agendas through the corporate sphere, not through Congress, not through the laws. Remember Schoolhouse Rock, and they tell you how a law is supposed to get passed and it gets voted on.
I'm just a bill.
Right, yeah. They've completely bypassed that system. And now it's going to come. So the Federal Reserve makes loans to these massive wealth managers. Then they are the operations arm of the Fed, and they essentially push this out throughout all the rest of these companies. So money printing, right? People talk about money printing. They've talked about it. It's called quantitative easing. But what it is that loans are given out to these massive corporations. Now, you or I can't go up to the Fed and say, hey, let me get some of that money. Let me get some of that printed money. No. These are people at the top of the top. You're talking about absolute billionaires. You're talking about the hedge funders, the richest of the rich. They are getting access to it, and they're completely, massively flush with let me explain something. BlackRock alone, one firm, manages $9 trillion. $9 trillion. That's almost half the entire U.S. GDP.
How is it even possible?
If you stack that up. It's possible because of this money printing, because they are printing out this money. They are doing it in terms of leveraged debt. They give it out to these corporations. Then they have it. They're getting rich. Their partners are getting rich. Their friends are getting rich. Their stooges like Jerome Powell, who is, they're all insider trading, right? So he's insider trading as the chairman of the Federal Reserve at the same time in terms of this. And what they're doing then is they're going to Wall Street and saying, hey, if you want access to this money, then you have to pass through the filter of the ESG, your environmental, social governance. And when I say governance, I don't mean like, government spending. I mean, are you adhering to leftist values? So if you go to Facebook and you say, if you want access to this, are you censoring conservatives?
Right.
Are you shutting them down? What good of a job are you doing? Oh, I don't know if you're going to get access. So they don't need laws for this. They don't need legislation. They're implementing their agenda. So we talk about why are all the corporations going woke?
Right, because the thing is that I know that cute conservatives feel like, well, why are all of these companies willing to do this? They're alienating so much of their customer base. And I said a few minutes ago in the intro, they don't care because they have way more money than all the conservatives combined. So explain that.
It's not about the customers anymore. It's the financialization, because they're not propping this up for the product. Netflix doesn't exist for the product. Disney doesn't exist for the product. It exists to prop up the stock price, right? That's the only thing they care about. So if they know if they want to be woke, then they can get the money, then they can continue going on, their stock price stays up. That's why it feels like you have a complete bifurcation of the stock market and the people who are involved in that at the higher levels versus everyone else who's looking at unemployment, who's looking at the supply chain issues, everything that we've seen going on this year that seems to be completely separate. And they say, wait a minute, how come you guys are doing so well and the rest of us are experiencing all this economic suffering? We're also, and by the way, keep in mind, this is inflation, right? This is completely inflationary. It's hyperinflation. It's something that we saw from the Weimar Republic. Many countries and regimes have tried this throughout the years. And what it is something that you see in the decline of a system, in the decline of a country, a decline of an empire, something where people are saying, look, this thing is going to crap anyway, so we might as well make as much money as we possibly can before it dissolves.
Would it be fair to say that these companies like Twitter, Facebook, Google, that they're not even actually woke or care about these leftist values? It's not a virtuous thing. It's just how to make money to comply by these rules? Or do they actually believe that these different initiatives are going to save the world?
Well, I think you do have both. I think you do have people there who say, look, we do believe these things. They all the schools they go to preach this stuff from the pulpit of the professor's spot at school, the professor's podium. They are taught that freedom of speech isn't a thing that matters. Freedom of religion isn't a thing that matters. What matters is, again, that idea of governance. They're not talking about governance of your company. They're talking about governance of society.
Oh, okay.
They're talking about, so ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So they're talking about basically how they understand, right? They completely understand. The left understands, and they've understood this for a long time, the power of corporations in society. So instead of just taking over the institutions, instead of just taking over the Pentagon, the heads of the military, like Milley and all this other stuff we've seen, now they're in your financial system. If they can take over the financial system, then you control all the corporations.
Explain what role Wall Street is playing in the Great Reset.
Right, so this is the operations arm of it. So Wall Street, the companies that get money, the companies that get better loans, the companies that hedge funds decide to go with, they are the ones that have the higher ESG score. And as we said, that's your corporate social credit score. So if you are playing along with woke values, if you are pushing this, if you are making sure you deplatform conservatives, debank conservatives, right? That's not allowing conservatives to have access to the financial system. And if you are following along with any of these, they'll also push these green initiatives. That's one of the huge reasons that we have the supply chain problems we do. That's why there's problems in trucking, there's problems in ports, is because they're pushing all of this green crap at a time where the market and the infrastructure just isn't there for it. But it doesn't matter because these companies are the ones, number one, that stand to profit from it. So it really is one of those things that at the end of the day, it's about some of the oldest things in human nature, some of the oldest things in human history. It's about money, it's about power, it's about greed. And because of people like Larry Fink over at BlackRock, they're going out and they're pushing their values across the rest of America. At the same time, what we also need to talk about is the fact that these firms are now looking into buying up single family housing, right? So the single family housing market and the fact they're keeping interest rates low. That's so that people like you and me, millennials, and then people like Zoomers, they want to keep interest rates completely low. That means like, all right, put it this way. Do you have a bank account?
Yes.
Do you have money in it?
Yes.
When you look at it, does your money actually grow or is it kind of the same?
It's the same.
Every time. Well, it didn't used to be that way. You used to be able to see 3% growth on a savings account. We don't have that anymore.
We don't have it?
No, it doesn't exist. You have, if anything, you have lower, if you have money in there, I would say like try to invest it. Get out of cash right now because
into
inflation,
Bitcoin.
So Bitcoin is a hedge against that. Bitcoin is definitely a store of value for people looking at this entire system and saying, if the Fed continues, right, its inflationary policies of printing more and more money, well, that means that over time, your value of your savings, if you have savings in cash, is going to go. So why is Bill Gates buying up all this real estate? Why is BlackRock buying up all this real estate? Because they know that real estate is going to maintain its store of value. It's always going to maintain its value because people always need land. You need somewhere to live. You need somewhere to grow crops. Now, the difference is they're going to be the ones that own it. You're not going to be the ones that own it. You're going to be the ones that live on it. As a renter, you're the ones who work there as a sharecropper or whatever else as a worker. They want you to be a Russian serf. They want you to be someone, this is the phrase, right, from the great ad of the Great Reset, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And I want to read something to you that I actually pulled up before the show, and it's perfect because that was the phrase that came out of the ad for all of this. But this is an actual quote from, listen to this, World Economic Forum, 2016 annual meeting of the Global Future Council. Welcome to the year 2030. Welcome to my city. Or should I say, our city. I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances or any clothes. It might seem odd to you, but it makes perfect sense for us in this city. Everything you once considered a product has now become a service.
Okay, this is horrifying. They said 2030?
2030.
So we have less than 10 years and you believe that this is going to be accomplished?
I'm repeating what they're saying. This is their own statements from the World Economic Forum, from Davos, that they're pushing on everybody else. The idea is that if you don't own anything, because you are just not, we had the housing crisis of the mid 2000s, right? And they say, well, the housing crisis of the mid 2000s took place. This is sort of like the Wall Street version of it. Well, that took place. It wasn't our fault for selling people subprime or giving people subprime loans and then having the government come in and back that up. No. It was your fault because you shouldn't have taken that loan when you couldn't service it. So, here's what we're going to do now. Instead of you being the landlord, instead of mom and dad being the landlord and, people having a second house that they rent out and then they use that to generate wealth. This has always been traditionally in American history, the way that families have accumulated wealth over time is through real estate. You own the family home, then That's passed on. Then there's money that's passed on from father to sons, et cetera, all the way down. And so you eventually are able to buy like a second house. A lot of this market, by the way, the single family home market, if you're not living there, most of the landlords are mom and pop. It's not these massive firms.
Well,
Not
the
yet.
firms like Blackstone and BlackRock, which are two different ones, they're buying up complete subdivisions in big cities. So when you buy a house then that is owned
And they're
by
paying
them,
way over market value for it.
right. So when you buy a house that is owned by Blackstone or BlackRock, are you paying rent to them?
Well, this is the idea. This is the part they don't tell you, because how do those assets generate money? How do they generate revenue? Off of you.
How?
Because you are going to be going in as a renter. They're getting the loan for half a percentage from what you're getting there, or maybe even a third of what you're getting. They are able to get out loans because they go to the bank and the bank says, well, do I want to loan money to Alex Clark and Jack Posobiec, or do I want to loan something out to BlackRock, which is this massive firm that I know is going to be good for it. It'll never have any problem. So sure, I'll give them a preferential rate because look at how much money they have, obviously. Well, then the problem though is what happens when they corner the entire market and then I can't buy anything. So, oh, guess what? I'm going to be a renter. So now I'm never going to have wealth accumulation. I'm not going to own anything because I'm going to live in one of these smart cities where I don't own anything. I don't even own clothes.
Who's the first? Which city in America do you think is the first to become a smart city?
Well, I don't think that any of cities are actually going to become smart cities. I think this is just what they're changing for ownership. So the idea is to take the individual, take families, take citizens, take middle class and working class and millennials and Zoomers, and to remove them from the ownership of they're taking ownership and the ability to generate wealth completely away from you. Completely away. They want you to be serfs. So we're going to go back to having land barons. We're going to be going back to having peasants where we can work on farms that are eventually owned by Bill Gates, right?
And
so
who are those people going to be? The peasants.
Right. That's all of us. That's all of us and our kids.
The scariest thing you said is that we won't be able to own clothes, Jack.
Right. They're looking at that the exact same way. They want clothes to be a service where have you heard of Rent the Runway?
I use it.
It's already started.
No!
It's already started,
I'm
Alex.
participating in that into the world.
It's already started. So think of it, right? It's the same idea though. You will own nothing, right?
Oh my gosh, I'm so freaked out.
Yeah. So this is, and again, this isn't some huge, again, it's not some huge conspiracy. It's just people looking at it and saying, why do we do things this way? We can make more money. Why? Because if I sell a dress, I sell it once. We're just talking dresses, right? But if I rent a dress, well, I can rent it every single time.
Oh, it's this genius.
And so now we're just making more money. So it's the idea of putting money ahead of anyone else. And so the companies, right, they're going to be making tons of money off the backs of everybody else. And then you are just going to be a renter, a consumer class. You're never going to amount to anything. Your kids won't amount to anything, because unless you can break out of that system, then you're not going to be able to accumulate wealth. You'll never be able to go through what's really been one of the greatest engines of wealth accumulation has been the United States and the free market, and the ability to go from working class to upper class, right? That you don't see that in other countries the way you do in the United States. But you mentioned before about cities. Now, of course, this isn't going to work in cities because you have places like Washington, D.C. where they try this, but at the same time, they're also allowing crime to go rampant. We've had bank robberies in DC this year, like legit actual bank robberies where people come in with masks and guns, everyone on the floor, bank robberies. But the FBI wants to go after,
school boards
and parents and teachers and everything. Then we have drive-by shootings. People were going around. Just recently, someone was standing up through their sunroof, just running around and just shooting people indiscriminately in Washington, D.C. This is our nation's capital, right? So our cities are descending into madness. They're absolutely descending into madness. This is why I tell people to get out of cities. This is why a lot of people right now are looking into homesteading. And I just say get out of cities because this entire thing, and because, again, if you don't own anything, if you don't have ownership in your community, if you are a renter class, then you're itinerant. At the end of the day, you're itinerant because it doesn't feel like your community. This is, funny enough, this is actually the plot of RoboCop, right? This is seriously, the company owns the city, then the company owns the police, and then it just goes out of control, and then they have to, find some way to deal with the crime. So they make like a cyborg. And then that gets into the transhumanism, which is also coming up right now. Thank you very much, Elon Musk and Neuralink. So a lot of these things that were once science fiction, like when you and I were kids, this was science fiction. Now it's becoming potentially reality. And we actually have to look at that. And by the way, all of this can be changed. All of this can be changed if people, number one, understand what's going on. Understand, like if you go to somebody, I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, there's a great reset happening and they're going to own everything and they're taking it all away. Don't do that. Just say, look, I think we're getting into a situation where these big companies, because of the money printing that's going on, they are getting flush with money. The money managers and the hedge funders are making, this is why the ape movement exists. This is why economic populism exists. This is why, GameStop and AMC and so much of these are going up as a way to kind of respond to all of this corruption. And understanding that it is an economic rigged system. Learn financial literacy. Listen to Dave Ramsey. There's a reason that they want to keep you financially illiterate. There's a reason they don't teach you the difference between a credit card and a debit card, when you're in school, but they'll teach you the difference between magma and lava, right? This information that's just essentially useless in the real world. So learn financial literacy. Start with Dave Ramsey or someone simple, then graduate to Richard Kiyosaki. He does Rich Dad, Poor Dad, learn dollar cost averaging. Crypto is a great example of this. Crypto is something, especially Bitcoin and the power of blockchain, the fact that it's actually decentralized. So a lot of crypto right now is issued by companies, right? A lot of the Ethereum, XRP, et cetera. So there's a possibility that might get classified as a security, but Bitcoin isn't tied to anything. It's completely decentralized. And so it's set up in such a way where you're taking government corruption out of it because no one controls it. And that's the beauty of Bitcoin.
So
you can't control it.
Why is somebody like Elon Musk then, who you're saying he's kind of working against us then, but he's also promoting things like Bitcoin. So he's kind of working with us. So
because Elon Musk has profited off of the system for the entirety of his career. He's someone who understood how to game the system, who understood how to be the visionary, but also play this game of ESG and the green movement into making vast amounts of it. He completely understands the game, but he's also smart. He's very smart, very highly intelligent. He understands where this is going. He understands that this isn't going to work forever, that it's not going to exist forever. But then he still went on Saturday Night Live and he bashed Bitcoin. He made fun of it. He belittled it. He mocked it. But at the same time, he dropped a few red pills about it the same way. So he's trying to play both sides. That's what Elon Musk is doing. He's trying to come out there and say, I want to be part of the system, so please keep giving me your government contracts. But at the same time, he also intellectually understands that this cannot continue. So even though he's gotten massively rich off of it, look, Elon Musk is telling you, he's making money off the rigged system, but he isn't putting money back into the system. He's putting money into crypto. He's getting out of the US dollar. He's getting out of these things because he understands where all this is going. By the way, a lot of the movement you see right now for the van life movement, right? So van life movement, the fact that that's being pushed right now, right?
People living out of vans?
Live out of a camper, go small, simplify, right? Just travel the country and live out of your camper or whatever it is, right?
Reminds me of Gabby Petito.
It does. It actually does. The fact that, a lot of those videos, if you notice, the algorithm on YouTube pushes those heavily, right? Again, own nothing or own very little, right? It's right there.
Everything is a lie. Everything is like a false reality.
So, and by the way, I'm actually like, if you're someone who, I'm Catholic. So if you're someone who is saying, look, I'm checking out of the material world and I want to go into simple living, and this is why, then I think that's a great thing. I actually do think that's a great thing. I'm not necessarily against it, but just understand the economic underpinnings of what you're doing. That if you're not holding money, or if you're not holding your wealth, or you're not generating any wealth, if you're not in real estate, if you're not in crypto, or you're not in these things, precious metals is another great example of that, gold, silver, etc. That the U.S. dollar is not a place you want to be right now to make money. And by the way, Bitcoin and all these other things, you don't need to be rich to start it. You can just, I have a buddy who he has his debit card set up that every time he makes a purchase, $1 goes to Bitcoin. Just $1 goes to Bitcoin every time.
Neat.
Yeah, so you can set up things like that so that you have a hedge against inflation. So that these crazy economic policies of the Federal Reserve, this inflation, this money printing, as it's going on, it's devaluing all the money. The problem is, at the end of this, what happens if the US dollar stops being the world reserve currency. And I really do think, and I don't think anyone said this yet, I really do think that the overall plan of the World Economic, and this is my assessment, this isn't, like I'm taking this, I just think this is where they're going. They want to push a one world currency.
Right. That's what I was wondering. Is the Great Reset is this kind of biblical?
It's biblical in the sense that, the Bible talks about consolidation of power away from God in certain times. I'm not someone who thinks that we are, quote unquote, in the end times or anything like that. But the Bible certainly talks about the dangers and the risks associated with consolidation of power. I do think the World Economic Forum would prefer, it'll be like Europe, right? So one day you go to sleep and you have one currency. The next day you wake up and all of your money in your bank account is now denominated by the euro, right? And you didn't have barely any say in that whatsoever. Now in Poland, they didn't do that. And in England, they didn't do that for the majority of the EU. Overnight, your money became one currency, and then that value went up and down depending on where you were, depending on where that was. And so I think that's where they are going with all of this. I think that they want the US dollar and all the other currencies that are out there to be under. The euro was the test bed for this. It was the test bed. They want it to be a situation where, again, they are able to control this. Now, what's interesting is you have kind of a power play there between the US and Davos when it comes to this, because the U.S. is saying, whoa, hold on. Even U.S. elites are going to say, wait a minute, we like being the ones that are at the top of the food chain. What you guys are proposing seems like it would diminish our standing. So you do have some kind of Game of Thrones internecine inter-elite battles there between sort of the great houses, if you will, to carry on the Game of Thrones perspective. And I don't know if people know that, but before I was doing politics, when I was still in the military and in the IC, I ran like a Game of Thrones blog for like 5 years straight.
What?
Yeah, I did.
That's
and
so fun.
Vice News tried to do a hit piece on me about it, but I said, I'm completely open about this. And they said, well, I understand politics well because I've read this book series like 5 times. And at the end of the day, human nature doesn't change. You can read the Bible and see that human nature from 2,000 years ago doesn't change to what it is now. People are susceptible to greed, to lust, to avarice, to all these different things. So unless you have something at your center, unless you have something core, unless you have spirituality, unless you have Christianity at your core, unless you're, believe in God and you are actually actively worshiping God every day and living your life out that way, then of course you're going to fall susceptible to this stuff.
So let me ask you something. You mentioned RoboCop. So I want to know, what role do you think Hollywood is going to play in the Great Reset?
Well, so Hollywood's role in all of this is twofold. Number one, you see the soft power of Hollywood vis-a-vis China, where you have Chinese firms coming in and bankrolling a lot of these movies, and then on the flip side, you have so many movies that are made now globally for this market. Now, go back to the 1980s, right? You would see anti-Soviet movies are everywhere. James Bond fought the communists for 20 years. You'll never see James Bond fighting China, right?
Ooh, that's so true.
The Avengers, the rest of it, etc. So we're because of the financialization of the U.S. has gone in, that built China up from the 1970s. That was from the foreign direct investment from international investors from the U.S. and the West. They decided that China is a developing country, so we're going to go into China. We're all going to make money. That's where the global financial capital flows are going to go. And the idea being that, all right, we're going to move the manufacturing base out of the West. We're going to shut down all manufacturing operations in the U.S., in the West. That's all going to move to China. That's all going to move to Asia. And that the U.S. is going to be this, as I said, this consumer culture of renters. And so what does Hollywood do? Hollywood is there to distract you. Hollywood is there to, make you not have to worry about this stuff. Hollywood is there to say, hey, just pay attention to this, whatever drama's going on, whoever's getting fired, just watch the next Marvel movie, just watch the next Disney movie, watch Star Wars 12, Star Wars 15, Star Wars 25. No, by the way, none of us listening to this podcast will live to see the last Star Wars movie.
What do you mean? Why? How do you know that?
Because they're never going to stop making them. They're just never going to stop at this point. Because it's just an assembly line now, right? So it's an assembly line designed to distract you from the most massive roll-up of power and wealth in human history, called the Great Reset, that's going on right now. And yet we're here distracted by bread and circuses.
Do you remember during the Obama presidency when we had those Occupy Wall Street protests?
Of course.
Were they onto something? Were conservatives completely wrong to write off their concerns?
So, and this is like, it's weird for me to say this, but Antifa may have actually been kind of right about this.
Wait,
I know.
what?
I know.
You wrote a whole book on Antifa.
I know. If you go back to the 1990s, even 1999 Battle of Seattle, when Antifa, now, of course, obviously their tactics crazy, and we don't support that. But when they attacked the World Trade Organization meeting that was being held in Seattle in 1999, what was the reason? Preventing China from becoming a member of the World Trade Organization. Antifa actually used to be pro-worker, and they used to be anti-globalist. Then, 2011, the Occupy movement, it was the 1% versus the 99%. You remember that? That was always the big phrase, Akati Park, that spread to, over 100 different cities around the world. And it really was worldwide. London, Tokyo, you saw this. And then somewhere along the way, suddenly Antifa, 10 years later, is on the same side as Bank of America, BlackRock, the World Economic Forum, Citigroup, all the rest. And you've got Rage Against the Machine headlining Coachella, and the whole thing is funded by Citigroup. And it's like, wait a minute, this is Rage Against the Machine. You guys are, but now you're Rage for the Machine. So they've been completely co-opted. That's why they injected these cultural kind of tensions into all of it, because they realized, the people that behind this realized that in the United States, the class distinctions of classical Marxism didn't work because we had such a big middle class. So you can't just say haves and have-nots because we have this huge middle class. Yes, we have poor and yes, we have rich, but we also have this giant middle. So how do you divide the United States? Racial, ethnic, gender, anything else under the sun, these cultural categories that you can put everybody into and then divide everyone that way. That's the difference. So Antifa now has been co-opted by everybody else to be on that side, which is actually, and this is something that we do talk about in Antifa book, where they have become the shock troops of the ruling class, the shock troops of the World Economic Forum, the shock troops of the people to go after anyone who's an actual populist fighting against these things, right? They will be the ones sicked on you. Antifa will be sicked on you. Anyone who stands up against this, Antifa or Antifa tactics will be used against you. What does that include? Doxing, personalization, going after yourself, putting your name out, which leads to stochastic terrorism, which is essentially that, they just demonize. Kristen Sinema, great example of this earlier this year.
Yes.
When, she stands up and says, I think this bill is fiscally irresponsible. And then the media spends a week demonizing her. And then what happens? These left-wing radicals chase her into a bathroom and are screaming at her while she's literally in the bathroom stall using the bathroom. And so just understand the process there. So understand the process of what's going on. Understand that this is a tactic. It's all being done to serve these higher purposes. And these people are being used. They're being completely exploited. They don't even realize what they're doing. They don't even realize what interests they're serving. They have that phrase, who do you protect? Who do you serve? And I said, do you guys ever ask yourselves that question? Like, who are you actually serving when you're destroying the mom and pop businesses in the inner cities, burning them down, smashing them, and then places like BlackRock, Blackstone, Amazon, Walmart, Jeff Bezos come in and purchase up all that property, and that family that had the place for 40 years, 50 years is supposed to just fade off into nothingness? Who do you serve?
I want receipts. Who in the conservative movement is compromised, Jack, and working against us with this Great Reset crap?
Well, I do think that you have a lot of people that come from the libertarian kind of background to this. Not the Mises Institute. I think Mises is actually not part of this, but you do have people that come to it from a libertarian perspective that will say, hey, these are just companies. They're just taking out a loan. That's all it is. They're just taking out a loan and they're just trying to make money. What's wrong with that, Jack? What's wrong with just trying to make a little bit of money and go off? Okay, well, you're actually exploiting people. This is not the free market, right? Because you're eliminating competition. You're eliminating the ability of wealth creation for the American citizen. You're destroying the American family. You're destroying the United States of America from the inside out. You've been doing it for 20 years. And so the problem with conservatism is that somewhere along the way in the 2000s, it became conservatarianism. And so much of the movement became beholden to the service of the corporate empire. And so conservatism was never supposed to be about corporatocracy, right? It was supposed to be about family. It was supposed to be about tradition, supposed to be about faith, right? And all of that was pushed aside because they said, no, it's just about making money. And this is a huge, by the way, this is also someone, for some of these people say, oh, well, it's just about the radical individualism. Well, when you have a hyper focus on the individual, that's actually what leads to wokeism. Because if you're only focused on the individual and you say whatever someone chooses is right, well, then who's to say?
It's
right?
narcissistic.
Who's to say, right? Who's to say that, you're what gender you are? Who's to say that science is real? Who's to say that, oh, you shouldn't do that because you have no moral, no social underpinning? And so the conservatives just left this all away. And the woke activists came in and said, well, if they identify this way, who are you to say anything? Because that's their individual choice.
You have unbelievable insight into the CCP and China. Explain how you know so much about China, and then what is China's role in the takeover of America? Is that inevitable? What is their role in the Great Reset?
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. So it's, my China background is interesting because all the way back in 2006, when I was still in college, I was given the opportunity to do a study abroad. And they said, you could go to Europe, you could go to Australia, or you go to China. And it was the scholarship that I had gone out for and actually won. And I said, I want to go to China. And people were looking at me back then. This was, again, the height of the war on terror. The Iraq war was in full swing. This is pre-surge, so pre-2007. And I said, you know what? I think that terrorism and the global war on terror is kind of a flash in the pan sort of situation. Yes, I understand that the current threat, but it seems like China is much more of a creeping, long tail, long-term situation. So went there in 2006 and I said, oh yeah, this is going to be a problem. And then
why? What did you see?
That they were taking things seriously. That they were looking at the United States as saying, we are going to take them down and we are going to reorient our entire society, our entire regime, our entire way of life about progressing forward, about really turning our entire population into a competitive engine against the United States, against the West, creating a new system, an authoritarian system to defeat the West, to take them down. And I eventually moved there a year later, so 2007, lived there for 2 years, learned fluent Mandarin.
Wait, can you say subscribe to the Spillover in Mandarin?
Oh, 你真是要听到这个 Spillover 的一个podcast.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, so you moved there, you learned Mandarin.
非常感谢. So, we learned Mandarin, and then I started out, I was working at the American Chamber of Commerce, and then I was eventually working in international business in Shanghai, traveled all around, and, I talked to Chinese people about this, and they would say, look, it's not that we hate America, it's that we want to be where America is.
Ooh.
We want to be at the time it was $1 to 8 Chinese yuan or renminbi. And they would say, we want to be in a position where it's 1 renminbi equals $8. And one thing that someone said to me, and this wasn't a threat, by the way, it was just him explaining, sort of his outlook on things. He said, we have a situation now where American families adopt a lot of Chinese kids. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'd love to be in a situation where Chinese families are adopting American children.
That's kind of scary.
And it's always stuck with me. That's how they look. Because they're looking at it on a super long-term 100-year game plan. We don't look at timelines like that. We think about, what's the next thing, what's going on our elections are every 4 years.
Yeah, my blood pressure is so high right now during this podcast.
So they want, right. So they want to be really where we were. And so they view this entire, so then I joined, just by way of background, joined the military. China was my predominant focus. I also spent a year at Guantanamo Bay, got sent there to do counterterrorism, worked in the interrogation cell. And then, but for the most part, I was doing Asia Pacific, and I was also using my Mandarin as a linguist and an intelligence officer eventually. So, really was looking at China and the rise of China and the fact that, and I realized though that the military wasn't the answer because, I'd say, hey, they're building these islands here in international waters. They'd say, hey, Posobiec, yeah, we see that, great. I said, well, they're militarizing them. They're putting missiles on them. Yeah, Posobiec, no, don't worry, we're working on a strongly worded letter. So I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to listen. You don't know nothing, Posobiec. We're going to go through the UN. That'll solve it. No, I don't think so, because they never used economic leverage. So no one economically, because they were all making money off of the rise of China. But then something happened. China got to the point where they could compete with the United States. And then suddenly the American elites realized, oh, wait a minute. China can compete with us because we made them rich. Now we have a huge problem on our hands. And so what are they doing? They are becoming as authoritarian in the United States as China is authoritarian in their country. Because I would see this. I would see as congressional delegations and governors and other world leaders would come through Shanghai and they would meet with the party. And there was this whole kind of statement early on, going back to when China was brought into the World Trade Organization. They said, well, if we expose China to the world system, then that will make China more open and economically liberal and more transparent. No, you fools. It's been the exact opposite. Our exposure to their system made our elites more authoritarian. And the reason they're conducting this great reset, the reason they're pushing this ESG stuff, the reason they're pushing this hold, and Charlie Munger, whose business partners with Warren Buffett, some of the richest people in the country, they are telling you openly they want China's financial system. They want the power of the CCP over America's markets, because they know if they have power over the markets, then they have power over essentially everything. They want to fight China through authoritarianism. So they are going to make our country more authoritarian, and also while they're becoming filthy rich off of rigging the system against us, that they think this is a way to protect their wealth against China. So they've realized that it's gotten too far and realized that they've essentially created a monster. And at this point, unless we radically change our economic system, if we don't radically change our economic system to the point where our money and our economy is not based on this Federal Reserve and money printing and this just huge inflationary bubbles all over the place, then we're never going to be able to compete with China. They are building the One Belt, One Road. They're building it around the world. They're using debt trap diplomacy in places like Asia, in places like the Middle East. They're backfilling us in Afghanistan. They're going to be building pipelines and railroads through Pakistan, et cetera, et cetera.
Was the debacle with Biden pulling us out of Afghanistan somehow him working with China? Like, what was all that?
So I don't know if it's directly related to that, but clearly, he's clearly compromised. He's clearly, through his son and through everything else. I don't think he actually understands what he's doing. I think that he's someone who's just kind of a puppet. He's been a puppet for his entire career, really, certainly the last 10 years or so. This is a guy who, you remember, Barack Obama never even invited him into the residence of the White House for coffee or for breakfast or for dinner.
Yeah, because everyone was like, oh my gosh, they're BFFs. They have friendship bracelets.
All
There was
fake.
this whole meme. And none of that was real.
Completely fake. Because remember, Biden said when he first got into the White House, in this current term, he said, I've never actually been in the residence before. So that's the part where the family lives. And that means for 8 years, Barack Obama and Michelle and the kids, and I think Michelle's mother lived there as well, they never once invited Joe Biden to even have a cup of coffee with him.
That is right there. That is a bombshell. That is a bombshell a lot of people don't know.
I think people completely missed the importance of that. That's Joe Biden's level of power and influence when it comes to this stuff.
So who's running the country?
The Great Reset at this point.
So what does that mean? Like, does that mean a certain company? Is it big tech? Is it Jack Dorsey?
So essentially, America's traditionally had three power nodes. You have Wall Street, Washington, D.C., and Hollywood, right? Those are really over the past 100, 150 years or so. And of course, Wall Street has grown by leaps and bounds over this. But then Silicon Valley came around. It started in the 90s. Had the original bubble, then it went down, now it's come back. So Silicon Valley is the fourth power node of the United States. So these are the four. So what you're seeing right now play out, the Facebook Karen, Facebook whistleblower operation is part of this, where you're seeing a power struggle among the elites, because they see that Silicon Valley is growing and growing, but they realize that its power hasn't been checked yet. So they're trying to check it through the Great Reset, through these ESG, corporate social scores, your credit scores. You're also seeing it through the idea that they're going to put legislation and regulation on Facebook and the other social media firms. So how are they doing this? They want to bring them in line. What's the biggest difference, right? The biggest difference is that Twitter, Facebook, the entire social media sphere is not where it was anymore, right? Is not where it was in 2016. A complete sea change since then. There will be no freedom of speech online. Why? Because it has been decreed by the elites. This has gotten too far out of control, and they blame Mark Zuckerberg and they blame Jack Dorsey for this. And they are saying, you are the ones who need to be brought to heel. You are the ones who need to fix the situation that you created, and you need to pay us homage and give us praise and tribute and everything else, because you cannot be someone who is more powerful than us. You can compete with us. You can have your situation, but you have to do it along the party line.
Popular conservatives like Candace Owens and Glenn Beck have been touting this idea of we're very close to World War III. We're a lot closer than people think. How do you feel about that?
So I don't necessarily think we're on the cusp of World War III, but at the same time, we don't want that. America doesn't want that. Regardless of who came out on top, I think everyone would kind of lose in a World War III scenario right now, whether Taiwan kicks that off or a situation like you saw in Afghanistan. The U.S. military is not prepared to fight. The U.S. Navy is certainly not prepared to fight. And I say that as a Navy officer who's very, very proud of the Navy, very proud of serving in the Navy. But we are not seeing a military corps that is prepared to do battle with a near-peer competitor like China or Russia or Iran right now. It is absolutely something that would not go well. And so, you get into these situations where I don't think people quite realize how bad that's going to be. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen either. I think that China wants to continue their slow rise. I think they want to continue rotting us, flooding us with fentanyl, keeping our people. The opioid crisis is because of China.
Is part of the China goal of rotting America doing all this gender confusion stuff and race wars and all of that?
Well, unfortunately, no. Actually, you find that a lot of this woke stuff actually comes from just corrupt American elites and corrupt Western elites. China doesn't quite understand it very well. They are actually banning, by the way, portrayals of LGBT in China in terms of media. They're banning private ownership of media right now in China, including news media. They're also cracking down on finance firms, financialization. China's economy has these problems as well. They have shadow banking, a lot of money printing issues. The difference being that they have economic growth that is based on manufacturing and based on things that are real, actual infrastructure, whereas our economic growth is by and large fake and performative. And so they have the ability to actually put out, say, look, here are our exports, we're building these things, we're building these products, so the wealth actually goes back and stays within China that they're extracting from the United States, whereas because in America, nothing is built here, so the wealth doesn't stay here.
A Pentagon official, I don't know if you saw this, recently resigned because he said U.S. cybersecurity is no match for China. He called our cybersecurity kindergarten level. And I'm not going to lie, when I saw that absolutely scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, so Chinese offensive operations in cybersecurity and the cyber realm are leaps and bounds beyond what ours are. And you could think of a variety of reasons of why, but we as a U.S. government have decided essentially to not fight with China, do not compete with them when it comes to cyber warfare. The great Facebook outage that happened earlier this year.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people reach out to me and say that was a dry run. If in a Taiwan invasion scenario. Now, my longstanding assessment on Taiwan is that China does not want to invade Taiwan. That China, the CCP, wants to take over Taiwan the same way they took over Hong Kong. They want it to be this one country, two systems. They want it to be peaceful. They want to just slowly isolate them from the rest of the world. And they've done this over the past 30 years. Isolate them from the rest of the world, be their only economic outlet, cut them off from the rest of the world in terms of their economic growth. They are Silicon Valley West. They make all of the most sophisticated microprocessors and the circuits. That comes all out of Taiwan. That is, no, I wish it was in California. I wish that was in, Silicon Valley. That's why it's called Silicon Valley, right? By the way, silicon, right? But it's just not true anymore. It's Taiwan largely. And so that is a strategic, if you want your microchips in your computers and your cell phones and your F-150s, right, that's coming from Taiwan circuits. Now, if China takes that over, and then if China, either makes a deal or is able to peel South Korea away from this, you've got the CCP in control of all of it. And they want that done peacefully because of the massive amount of economic and technological leverage that would give them over the rest of the planet. So they want this to be, again, they look at things from a 100-year timeline. So they isolate Taiwan and they say, hey, do you want some loans? Do you want, it looks like your bridge needs some work. It looks like your airport needs some work. Oh, it's weird how you can't seem to get any money from Wall Street because we told Wall Street that we wouldn't make any deals with them anymore, that we'd cut them off if they gave you a loan, but we'd love to give you a loan from the Bank of China in Beijing, right? So you see how it works, right? So they're trying to take Taiwan that way. However, if the CCP were faced with a crisis of legitimacy, if they were faced with, the regime was actually faced with a crisis, the way they were at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, this is a huge reason. So in China, you have something called the theory of dynastic cycles. So China's history has always been a history of imperial dynasties that goes back thousands of years, right? You have one dynasty after another. The last dynasty was the Qing dynasty, they were actually Manchurian. And then the CCP. So if you look at the CCP as a new dynasty in China, then you would have to say, well, what is the theory of dynastic decline? Is that eventually one dynasty is given the mandate of heaven. This is their theory. Given the mandate of heaven, they have it for a while. They become powerful. Then they become decadent. Then the decadence leads to failure, leads to corruption, and then they lose the mandate of heaven. So how do you know if you lost the mandate of heaven? Well, one of the things you would see is economic decline. Another one of the things you'd see is famine. And then the final one you would see is pestilence.
And what is all that?
Like disease. So a widespread disease arriving and then arising and spreading throughout your country could be seen as losing the mandate of heaven, almost like a pandemic, shall we say. And so when this happened, Xi Jinping, of course, understands Chinese history far better than I do. So one of the first things he said about it was that this virus is a demon from hell. And he meant that to say that this virus does not come from heaven, right? So to front stop that and say, this isn't us losing the mandate of heaven, this is something else entirely, and we're going to defeat it, right? And so he was able, by and large, to do that. But they needed massive economic spending to do this, and this is creating a huge problem for their market and their shadow banking system, which is collapsing right now. If they were faced with actual regime legitimacy threatening, then potentially there could be a scenario where they do want to invade Taiwan. And if that were to take place, one of the first things you would see is a complete shutdown of social media. You would see cyber attacks across the West like you've never seen before. You probably wouldn't be able to access your bank account. GPS would completely go offline. Just imagine, right? Imagine if you can't access your Venmo, your PayPal, your Apple Pay. GPS is gone, right? You can't access your Gmail. You can't access.
They're already
any
doing this
social
though
media.
with PayPal and Venmo and stuff. They're already starting this thing of if you are a danger to society, if you're posting things we don't like, then we can limit your access to using our facilities.
Oh, of course.
Whatever.
And this is why conservatives need a parallel economy. They need parallel structures for this thing. But what I'm saying is, imagine what happens if the entire population of the West loses access to all of that overnight.
And that's what would happen in the Great Reset.
That would be day one of a Taiwan invasion scenario. China would just turn that all off and it would have mass chaos across the U.S.
So just to wrap up,
and they can do that with our cybersecurity, with our lack of cybersecurity. They can do that with cyber operations. We can't do that to them.
So what does the end of the Great Reset look like? Like, what does the world look like if these tyrants get what they want? Who wins?
The United States isn't playing to win right now. The American people are focused on bread and circuses, by and large. Not everyone, certainly not people that are listening to this podcast, people who listen to us, but I think the vast majority out there are not paying attention to these things. But I think that I do see changes. I do see ripples, with the vaccine mandates and some of the other things that have been out there because the authoritarianism has crept in and it's become too overt. And it's become too in your face and in your grill that people are starting to stand up. And I think people are trying to wake up. So that's, what they call it, the Great Awakening. And that's the only possible answer you can have to the Great Reset.
Jack, where can people find you? Tell us about your book. Tell us about your shows, where to follow you and all that.
Thank you. So, Human Events Daily, we are the brother podcast to the Spillover under the Turning Point Network. So you can find us there. We do 25 minutes a day or so. So it's our motto is be good, be brief, be gone. And essentially what it is me kind of piggybacking and leveraging my military experience as an intelligence officer. It's your intelligence briefing for the day, giving you the main stories. If you're someone who's busy, you don't have a lot of time to pay attention to the news, but you want to keep abreast of what's going on, you pop that in, 4 or 5 stories, analysis, in, out, done. So you follow that, you go to Apple Podcast, wherever you want. And then, of course, for the book, the latest book was antifabook.com. You can find out a lot about this. I talk about the underpinnings about Antifa, but then also the background of who they are, who they serve, right? And the fact that they've become the shock troops of the ruling class.
Jack, thank you so much for coming on the Spillover. And also, thank you so much for supporting me from day one.
No, I think people don't know that, like, even though I like you and I have been friends for years, but I think this is actually the very first thing we've ever, like, done together.
It is.
Yeah. So people don't know that Alex and I are actually really good friends.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thanks, Alex.
Well, that was a little unsettling. I mean, yes, a little scary, but also I would much rather know that kind of stuff than not, so I can kind of prepare for it or look for signs that things are getting worse and know how to make it better. So I really appreciate Jack coming on, but seriously, can't we all just be left alone to get married and have our babies in peace? As conservatives, I don't think we can really afford to put our fingers in our ears anymore and say, la, 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 right? This is go time, baby. If you aren't already, subscribe to The Spillover. Every subscription I get literally makes my entire week and allows us to keep getting bigger and better guests. I also love hearing from all of you, so please leave a 5-star review. Tell me how much you love The Spillover, which episodes you've enjoyed the most. We are back next Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific and midnight Eastern on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But as always, you can watch the episodes on POPlitics' YouTube and TPUSA Live at 8 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. That's all I got for you this week. Love you, mean it. Bye.
Big dog status, I'm a big dog vet. I pull up on the block in a big Corvette. Yeah. Ride around the city with a stick all black. Try with a stroke, but we ain't with all that. Yeah.
Hey there, it's Jon Root. Coming up next on TPUSA Live, tune into the newest episode of POPlitics, where host Alex Clark will break down Will Smith's shocking reveal in his new memoir, Who Made the First Move, Kim or Pete? Dakota Johnson has some interesting things to say about cancel culture, that, and so much more pop culture without the propaganda, next on POPlitics.
All right, today we're going to play Are You Smarter Than a Leftist? So, if someone hops over your fence in your backyard, puts up a tent, do you ask them to leave or give them $450,000?
Ask them to leave?
Good try.
See? Even kids get it. So why can't the left?
Unfortunately, they're not very bright.
This A-list actor admits he struggled with thoughts of killing his own dad. Actress Dakota Johnson called cancel culture an effing downer and says it's gotten way out of hand. I have even more juicy scoop on Kim K and Pete Davidson. And Glenn Beck has a theory about voters. It's called the Joe Rogan effect. I'll tell you about it, and you can tell me if you agree or not. And also, should women get paid time off from work if they have an abortion? We're discussing that in the Freak of the Week. I'm Alex Clark, and this is POPlitics. You may not know this, but Will Smith had a complicated childhood. And no, I'm not making a joke about moving to Bel Air.
Mind your business, that's all. Mind your business.
Growing up, his dad went to every game, every recital, every play he ever starred in, but he was also a violent alcoholic who once punched his mother so hard in the head that she started to spit up blood. In an excerpt from his new memoir titled Me, he says that he seriously thought about killing his own dad to avenge his mother. In 2016, his dad was dying and Will was taking care of him. He wrote that one night, as I delicately wheeled him from his bedroom toward the bathroom, a darkness arose within me. The path between the two rooms goes past the top of the stairs. As a child, I'd always told myself that I would one day avenge my mother. I paused at the top of the stairs. I could shove him down and easily get away with it. As the decades of pain, anger, and resentment coursed, then receded, I shook my head and proceeded to wheel Daddy-O to the bathroom. Whoa, that's a heavy thing to admit, but I can appreciate his transparency about his past. Will's book comes out next Tuesday on the 9th. What do you think? Will you snag a copy of this?
Vivian, I'm doing it in my feelings challenge.
Dakota, Mr. Gray, will cancel you now. Speaking of books, were you ever into 50 Shades of Grey? Actress Dakota Johnson is slamming cancel culture and says that it's a thing she hates because it's an effing downer and that the whole movement is just a major overcorrection because she believes people can change. Dakota has worked with multiple canceled actors, Shia LaBeouf, Armie Hammer, and Johnny Depp. Maybe she's a curse.
I'm about to start crying. I feel like I'm untouched by an angel right now. Look.
Oh, there it goes.
Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson have gone to a whole nother level. Guess who made the first move? Kim. Kim allegedly asked Pete's publicist for his number after SNL, and sources are saying that this thing between them isn't a one-time thing. Yeah, I'm sure it isn't. I mean, you remember what Ariana Grande said.
I mean, he was really cute, you know? He was really cute. Yeah. And it was really big.
They're right, though. It's not a one-time thing. They've already gone to dinner in New York City multiple times this week, including to one of his favorite spots on Staten Island.
Makes me, sick to my stomach.
Apparently, Kim is really worried about all of this negatively affecting Kanye, but I think that ship has sailed. The man's shaved off his eyebrows. If that's not a cry for help, I don't know what is.
I feel bad for the guy.
I love Glenn Beck so much. He's one of the main conservatives I grew up listening to. It's such a great take on his show this week, and it involves a theory he has on Joe Rogan. Listen to this and tell me what you think.
When rappers, Republicans, actors, environmentalists, truck drivers, NBA players, liberals, millionaires, moms, pop stars, sports anchors, comedians, and historians are all on the same team, you're starting to have e pluribus unum. They're starting to stop arguing about the things that don't matter and start standing together for the things that do. I have a name for it. I just made it up. But it's the Joe Rogan effect. The Joe Rogan effect describes the countless Americans that have just come up to a line where they're just not going to cross. Regardless of politics, career, background, anything, they're just like, nope, I'm not going there.
Do you agree? Is this currently happening in America? He always has spicy takes.
I think John McCain would have been worse for the country than Barack Obama. How's that?
Let's be honest, Portland, Oregon could be the freak of the week every week for multiple reasons. But this week in particular, it's because they're offering paid time off to employees who want to grieve their abortion.
I said certified free. 7 days a week.
Portland, Oregon is the first city to offer bereavement leave and paid time off for employees who get an abortion.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
That sentence alone seems like a complete oxymoron to me. Public employees will get the same time off for miscarriages or stillbirths as well, which is good. I do agree with that, because those are a loss of a child that you can't control or help. It wasn't something that you wanted or caused. An abortion, though, is the direct, purposeful killing of another human being. That's like a killer asking for time off to go to his victim's funeral. The other thing is, what are you grieving? If it's not a big deal and not even a person yet, as so many pro-choice activists believe, why couldn't you go right back to work the next day?
I mean,
if this is that and that is what and what this is what we're talking about.
The thing is, you can tell people it's just a clump of cells or not a person all day long, but you can't sell the lie to the human soul. They know that an abortion severely traumatizes people, but either way you slice it, and yes, you are slicing it because abortion involves the dismemberment of the child in order to remove it piece by piece. It is unbelievably insulting and disgusting to put bereavement for a miscarriage and abortion in the same category. One is a mother whose child was taken from her against her will. One is a mother who purposely wanted to kill her own child. Portland, Oregon is more than the freak of the week. It's a satanic city, and you can't convince me otherwise.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
The future of America is looking grim. Soon we will not own anything and we will rent everything. We're gonna be censored right off the internet and companies are incentivized right now to do it. China is using companies like BlackRock to buy up all the housing and are sneakily taking over without us even knowing. What am I talking about? It's called the Great Reset. And that isn't a made-up term from conservatives, okay? It's a real thing named by not only the Biden administration, but by the World Economic Forum. And on this week's episode of The Spillover, I invited my friend, Jack Posobiec, and host of one of the top news podcasts in the world, Human Events Daily, to come on and discuss it. This is an episode that will scare the crap out of you, but you'll also feel 10 times smarter after listening. It's an episode you're gonna be texting to everyone you know, like, you gotta listen to this. And it's out now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Just search for The Spillover. And after you listen, be sure to tell me what you thought of it on a 5-star review and subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Don't forget to heart this POPlitics episode. Tell me if you believe in Glenn Beck's Joe Rogan theory, and what do you think of bereavement for women who get abortions in Portland? DM this episode to one pro-life friend, ask if they've heard about this story, and tap the save button. Tonight, I'm speaking at Texas A&M. If you need a last-minute ticket, DM POPlitics. I'll send you that link. We're back Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific with a special episode, What Your Favorite POPlitics Episode Says About You. It's pop culture without the propaganda every single day. I'm Alex Clark, and this is POPlitics. Support POPlitics, the first ever conservative pop culture daily show, by subscribing to our channel, turning on notifications, and of course, hitting the thumbs up. Also, our main home is on Instagram. Seriously, just trust me, that's where the real magic happens. Follow us there at POPlitics.